Hello and welcome to Unbalanced Sports Views Network. Um, Mikey the Greek, Augie the Greek, whatever the hell his name is this week. It's absolutely ridiculous. He
It's the
wants
champ.
to he wants to share his picks with you this week, especially if you go to Gamblers Anonymous because the man has no conscience.
No,
That's fine.
hold on. Don't tell them that. It's a special gambling strategy if you're in Gamblers Anonymous, and it's called the every man's gambling strategy.
I love
And
you for this.
we can go over that as well. But I'll be going around and speaking to groups to make sure that they're not losing. If they do fall off the wagon, they don't lose their pants.
Is that where you find your new clients for your small business? Support is in Gamblers Anonymous.
It's
I get a good work opportunity tax credit if I hire them.
it's where you're out scouting for the next future Mrs. Augie the Greek.
Because he loves all the ladies.
Figures if he could find somebody willing to be anybody that gambles that much might take a chance. Anybody with a real gambling problem could possibly take a chance on him. All right, so aside from
safe bet.
aside from my ongoing horror at the state of the world, which just I've sent more emails and made more phone calls to members of Congress in the last week and a half, 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks, as I continue to expand my net of people to try and contact for no purpose because I'm just sitting here and I can't do anything because I'm not a rich super PAC.
You know what you can do? You can go down to Washington and storm the Capitol.
Nah, don't want to do that exactly.
Stop.
You don't want to do that?
Don't want to do that exactly. But anyway, aside from that, my growing horror that at the dearth of humanity that I see in the world, and my I guess my I will also say my tepid tepid enthusiasm that maybe there's a change coming. Maybe seems to be some momentum of people with conscience stepping up. Young people do seem to inspire me a little bit. So with that all said, I watched a very little bit of football this week, and then had to double back and watch sort of on the back end of it because I was driving from Atlanta back here, and
You missed a great week of football then.
How long of a drive is that for you?
about 5.5. Well, I was actually in Ackworth, a bit northwest of Atlanta, so it's about 5.5 hours. But I spent the better part of the Ravens game at the Atlanta Zoo, where I am happy to say I did manage to see not one, not two, not even three, but four panda bears live and in person, a thing that is rapidly becoming impossible in this country as panda diplomacy is being stripped away from the United States because we're such a bunch of fucking idiots. Just, who are like don't understand how to deal with a government that's like, hey man, we just all want to get rich together. And so we're like, no, because that threatens us because we want to be the only ones that get rich. So if you're not a vassal, you're my enemy. We're such a fucking whack job.
No politics.
This isn't politics, but I will say the United States is rapidly becoming the Edmonton Oilers of countries.
I
That is
agree.
that is to say, the country that everyone expects to be a Stanley Cup finalist, but is a complete basket case, and just fired their GM after they lost to one of the worst hockey teams, not just in the league, but perhaps ever, in the San Jose Sharks. I don't know if anybody saw that, but it's pretty funny.
No.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. The Oilers are what, 3-9-1 or something like that, and the Sharks started their season 110-1, and
Yeah.
and had scored like fewer goals than basically any team to start, like any team's first 12 games in a number of years, and they have no talent and are tanking on purpose. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, the GM of the Sharks is the brother of the Dolphins GM, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, that's where we are. That's where we are, people. That's the end of my politics rant. That the United States is the Edmonton Oilers. But yeah, no, so I didn't even get to watch the Ravens game. I listened to most of it on my I listened to most of it while I was walking around the zoo and checking out the pandas, who are incredibly cool animals. And the Atlanta Zoo has 3 male lions in their little lion enclosure, which I thought was pretty interesting because there's no females to be seen, and the one lion just kept walking around and was roaring. You could hear him all over the zoo,
Oh
roaring
yeah.
periodically. Yeah, I mean, I
Like,
think
where's the lady?
I think maybe the other 2 were fine with each other. They were perfectly content
Right. Right.
to find comfort in each other's arms. But the third man out was pretty grumpy about it.
Interesting.
He's wandering around
Interesting.
gruffing. So
How about the tigers? Did you see any tigers?
So a tiger up close and personal. And I'll credit my daughter with that because we were looking and she's like, "Oh, you can go over there and see it up closer." And I could not see what she was talking about, and she ran off. So I chased after her, like, I don't know where she's running to, and it could
Right.
possibly. I mean, the child loves cats, and tigers are cats, and the thought did
cats.
cross my mind that she might have seen a way in. And so I better
boy.
hurry up and catch up to her before she went in. But in fact, she went around and there was a viewing there was like a viewing wall like right next to where it was sitting. Some beautiful animals. Anyway, yeah, so we saw a Sumatran tiger. I like the I think it's at can't remember if it's the Tampa Zoo or if it's at Busch Gardens. There's a tiger enclosure that has a walkway that goes overhead, and the can cross over. The tigers can cross over
I was
from one part of the enclosure to the other, and it's pretty cool because I've been there when they've gone, like they're walking right over you, and it's like it's pretty impressive.
I was just going to ask you if they do that with the baboons, like in the Washington Zoo. They have
Oh,
that same exact thing, but the big
yeah,
old baboons can walk over top of you.
sure. No, I'm not. Yeah, it's just like it is just like that. Except except I think
That's pretty cool, though. It's a tiger.
I think it's Busch Gardens because they have a white tiger, and then although now I'm saying that actually I think Busch Gardens has a cool thing where you go in. It's like you go into this little you like duck down into this little space, and then you go up the ladder, and there's a like a plexiglass circle that comes up in the middle of the enclosure. And so I remember one time we were there and the tiger was like laying right next to that like plexiglass enclosure. So you climbed up and you were just like, I mean, like face to face with this thing.
How you doing?
Yeah.
That's not intimidating at all.
I hope you can't break plexiglass.
Hey, can we get Mike to change his name to Mikey the Fan?
Yeah,
or
for sure.
Auggie the Fan?
Hold on. I'm grabbing a snack. I'll be back.
I mean, yeah, I know. The man has zero camera discipline.
So I want to get your guys' input. I want to hear your guys' take. So we typically stick with the NFL, right? But
sure.
In the interest of veering outside, I am curious your guys' thoughts on the whole situation going on with Michigan and Harbaugh.
I've only been skimming the headlines. I don't really know the details except for they were visiting games, I guess, stealing signs or something like that.
There was one of their scouts was evidently going to the other teams and scouting because in college you don't have the green dot like you do in the NFL, so you can't communicate to the players on the field, so you do it with signs from the sideline,
right?
And so he was basically more or less notating and recording what it is, what the sign was, and then the play that they called.
Right.
The problem is there's been no affiliation at all tied to anyone on the coaching staff. So they're either really good at hiding it, and he was doing it on his own, or he was doing it on his own, but they haven't been able to prove anything. They haven't been able to tie anything.
Well, that may or may not be true. The whatever evidence the investigation has turned up is not public. So I mean, like in terms of time. They
flat out come out and said they can find no tie back to Harbaugh specifically.
Okay. All right, I didn't see that.
But they did suspend him, right?
Yeah, they suspended.
And that's why I have an issue with it.
So here's what I would say. I would say this: there is an overarching philosophy that we have in this country, and that trickles down into basically all of the things that all of our institutions, and that is the idea that the buck stops with the person at the top. And in the case of a football team, that stops with that is the head coach. I mean, yeah, you could argue maybe the GM or whatever, but like the head coach is obviously who runs the day-to-day operations of a thing. And so if you have somebody representing you who's doing this thing, I mean, we could argue
I'm
that maybe it's
fine.
not fair, but I do.
Everything you're saying, I'm totally fine with. The problem I have is the investigation's not complete.
Mhm.
How can you suspend a coach for any determined amount of time if you haven't determined true culpability or anything even close to that? Like, I
Well,
just
and
feel like it's a bit
yeah,
of the guilt, using another thing that trickles down and everything, and that is you're also guilty until proven innocent
well,
nowadays.
yeah, but not really. I mean, that may be the case in the court of public opinion, but the court of public
Yes,
opinion.
that's more what I'm referring to, but
I
I
mean,
don't
but
like
that,
the
yeah, but
suspension any either.
and I agree that is a problem. For example, it's why Mike has heard me say this many times. Like, it really drives me crazy that like when places do things like have open records for mugshots. Like, you should not. Like, your mugshot should not be
Yeah.
publishable, should not be scannable. If you've not been
Right.
convicted of a crime, your mugshot should be held in
Sure.
private. It should not
Agreed.
be splashed on the screen because that
Yep.
because that poisons everyone who sees it.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
And so with the only exceptions being public figures for whom that the public has an interest in knowing these things, because there is a different dynamic at play. If your local congressman or the mayor or somebody like that has been arrested, you, the public, do have a right to know that. Anybody who's a head coach, you have a right to know that too, because they're on the public dole. What I mean? You have, like, if you're at a state school, presumably you're being paid out of the public coffer. So
Mhm.
there are exceptions to that. But if you're just like a regular dude, like, then no. I get it. It's annoying when it's celebrities or whatever, but there is a kind of public interest in that maybe overrides their right to privacy. I'm not sure. I think that's a legal question. But I think in terms
Yeah.
of, like, if it's any one of the three of us or just a regular person, then no. Harbaugh
And
doesn't
I
fit
just
into
don't
that.
think it's any of our business
Harbaugh
in a
doesn't
lot
fit
of
it.
those situations.
Well, but in the case
Mhm.
of
Yeah.
Harbaugh, he doesn't fit in. Right, I agree. But Harbaugh doesn't fit into that category. He is a public employee. He is a state employee,
Sure.
the highest paid state employee in the state of Michigan, and as such, the public, not just in Michigan, but the public, uh, college football observers, all have a vested interest in this, to a greater or lesser degree. Um,
For
now,
sure.
now
And I
is
and I
the
don't disagree
is
with any of your
now hold
points. I
on.
just timing of suspension, I think that's a little suspicious.
Sure. But I also want to say, do not put me in a position where I have to defend the NCAA in any way, shape, or form,
That's
because
what you're doing.
I don't want to defend the cartel. I do not have any intention of defending a cartel.
Mhm.
However, in the case of a suspension or something like this, I I am kind of, I mean, I am sort of the uh, I I understand it. I would also understand it if they didn't do it. So I kind of am of the mind that, like, well, yeah, I think that this is fodder for argument both ways. But at the end of the day, it's a private cartel making this decision. It's not a public institution. The school might be public, but the NCAA sure as hell isn't. And so, how much voice we actually have in the management of a privately run, privately owned and operated cartel that is legally allowed to be a cartel. I
Mhm.
it's that whole thing where it's like, how much control do you have over what a private company does without,
Mhm. No, I get
unless
you.
the government gets involved. Like, the only way to change that would be for
Mhm.
Congress to do something.
There's another way, and I do think it's on the horizon. And we'll see if it's true or not, because you guys know I watch lots of soccer,
Yes,
and with the Saudi investment fund stepping in and buying all these massive players, right, with
sure.
for
Golf.
loads of money, they're surely going to look at the NFL and college football and just football as a whole and go, there's a lot of money here. And they've already had conversations with Florida State. Like I read an article about that. I don't know if it went anywhere. I haven't seen any but can you imagine if they stepped in and go, guess what you no longer need? And we're going to essentially start our Super League, which I know is controversial in soccer, but bring that to Super League of NCAA and take the best teams away and pay them more money, and the whole landscape changes.
Well, so okay, sure, but then okay. So as far as the NFL is concerned, this is not. It is not possible in the same way that it was with the PGA, because
Sure.
what made it possible, and I mean, but legally it's not possible for them to do. The PGA was in a particularly vulnerable position because the PGA has maintained its nonprofit status. And as a result of maintaining its
Mhm.
nonprofit status, it remains vulnerable to the possibility of being checked on how nonprofit it is. And as a result, when the Saudis made the sort of started a second organization, and again, all these leagues have a special dispensation from Congress to basically run a monopoly. And so you're running a monopoly and you're calling yourself a nonprofit. It's a bit of a problem. Legally speaking, you're in a different category, you're in a different group. The NFL was a nonprofit up until 2015, but then they relinquished their nonprofit status, which again has always been a fiction. It's never been a nonprofit, obviously.
Of course.
It was a tax dodge, but they crunched the numbers and figured out that they could make more money because they have more flexibility outside of that nonprofit status. And so in 2015, they made that switch. I think baseball did it. I think baseball switched in the 90s. Basketball switched back in the 80s, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe in the 90s as well. Anyway, because they're no longer in that nonprofit status, they are not vulnerable to the possibility of Saudi Arabia starting their own league, funding it, pulling players away, and then basically using that as leverage to expose the lie of the nonprofit.
Oh no, I don't
Essentially, how
necessarily
it works
mean
with PGA.
I
So
don't.
I don't
I'm
see
not
it happening
referring
with the
to the.
NFL.
I'm not talking about the exposing the lie of the nonprofit. I'm talking about taking control away from this powerhouse that thinks that
Sure.
they're in charge, and all of a sudden they're going to lose market share because they just have more money.
Yeah,
You know, at the end of the day.
I'm not sure how much the Saudi Arabia is interested certainly in making money. That's certainly part of this. But I think more than anything, this is about laundering their reputation around the world. They're trying to, they're sport
Sure,
washing more than
could
anything.
be.
Um, sure, obviously they want to make money, but the Live was not making money. And then they offered to take on the PGA, which is questionably a moneymaker. Um, the PGA
This is
has struggled economically
uh
or
what's his
financially.
face is BSM's all this is his or
M-
BSL, whatever they call him.
MBS.
MBS. This is MBS's big drive to kind of
Sport.
rejuvenate
Yeah.
and reshape their reputation after they went whacking people all over the place and they killed the journalists and all that stuff.
Um,
I love how
yeah,
you word
it's
things.
yeah, it's Saudi Arabia's other big thing is trying to draw capital in there for NEOM, which is my favorite sort of capitalist project right now. Have you guys seen NEOM? This thing they're trying to do.
Is
They
that
want
the new city that they're
the
building or
line. Yeah,
something?
the line is part of NEOM. Yeah, they're just going to build this huge, city of the future across the middle of the desert in a straight
Uh-huh.
line, and it's going to be all include, and it's going to be like, I mean, that it's. I don't expect it'll ever actually get built, but I do think it'll be a good way to separate a lot of fools from their money in the meantime. Um,
Mhm.
but I mean, it's the environmental catastrophe that it's going to cause is well beyond anything that a rational country would ever do. But anyway, yeah, I mean, as far as siphoning off college programs, I'm not sure how, again, I'm not sure how you do that in a way where Florida State's football team does not operate separate from the university. I'm not sure how you would separate it
Sure,
from the university, and the university operates by
that's fair. That's something
state
you know about
charter.
more than I do, for sure.
Yeah, I mean it operates by state charter. Now, University of Miami, like the football team doesn't operate separate from the university, but I mean the only possibility of something like this happening is if they would have to and I'm not even sure how you do this, but you would have to buy the whole university, and I don't know how you go about doing that because that's not really how these things work. They're owned in
No.
trust. Most universities don't have an individual owner. There are some that have like a leadership, an ownership group. Particularly private Christian schools sort of come to mind as an example.
Well, the way you do it is you cease to have a program under normal conditions, and that becomes now their new job as kind of an offshoot, and it becomes a completely different thing than what we know. It almost
Sure.
becomes like a secondary pro league, for lack of a better way of saying it.
Mhm.
Like that's almost what you would have to do, right? Is that you separate the team from the school. Um, Even though they're all students and you can create all that legal, like law, like not law, but language that says must be a student of, like create the same things, but
Yeah.
without the
I
actual
mean,
tie to
I,
the school itself.
yeah, I mean that's the thing too, though. Like, I mean, even even the best programs, I mean, you've got, what, maybe 8 to 12 people on a team that think that they have a chance of going pro on a team of like 90 players. You know what I mean?
They
So
don't care about the player. I'm
yeah, yeah, yeah.
saying they
No,
care
I
about the
understand, but
team.
I'm saying that the overwhelming majority of players are like, no, this is just a thing I do. A lot of them are like, this is a thing I do to get my education. I love the
Mhm.
game. I want to keep doing it.
That's right.
I know that this is the end of the line for me, but I
Mhm.
want to get my education this way. Um,
And it's great on a resume too when you play
That's what
for
I'm
a
saying.
big
The
time
only
school
change
like
is the
that.
attachment. The only
well,
change is
Yep.
really whether it's you call it Florida State University
yeah. See, but
or
I don't. It's not that
create
easy.
your own.
Those charters they're like they can be overruled by they have to be done by like an act of Congress of legislature. So the University of Florida can't just say like we have decided to relocate to
No,
Azerbaijan. I,
but they can say we've decided to cease having a football program.
no, well, yeah, they
That's
could,
all they have to do from a university standpoint.
yeah, sure.
And then it's
However,
Taco Bell that the players all go work for lack of a better way of saying it.
well, again, but what is the incentive for the school to do that? Because they get a
Lots
big
of money.
because they get a whole bunch, they get a big endowment, but then they lose the draw to the school for, again, Florida,
Why
60,000
would you lose
students
a
here.
draw? You pay the players just like they do now, potentially even more than they do.
I
And if
again,
you have TV networks on board, you can get now. I'm just saying there's a way to do it.
mhm,
I'm like, obviously, there are hurdles and things that would have to be worked through. And
sure,
I'm not anywhere in that realm. And I just told you how I would separate the two. You know what I mean?
sure,
And there are people way more creative than me out there.
sure. And then you would change the whole recruitment process. I mean, I guess
All
so.
of that,
There's very
everything.
few
Yeah,
more
I mean,
creative than you.
I think that for again, I mean, maybe I mean, I'm sure there's a way to do this, but you would have to convince a lot of, you'd have to convince a
Money
lot
talks,
all at
buddy.
once, huh?
Money talks. You walk to the SEC right now and go, this is our proposal. This is how we solve it. We'll take every single one of your teams. And how much do you make today? 500 million a year. Fine. Here's a billion a year. Come join us. We're starting our own thing. You don't think the SEC goes,
All right.
yes, please,
So
as long as the
Money,
details are
the
figured out.
Saudi the Saudi Public Investment Fund is valued at 594 billion. All right. So
That's what I mean. You could throw 2 billion at the SEC where they make 500 million today. Like, I don't know the numbers. I'm just spitballing, right? But I'm like, and you don't think the entire SEC would go, yep, we're on board.
so just to put it in perspective, so what did I say, 539 billion?
Yeah.
Harvard alone has a 51 billion-dollar endowment. Harvard has
mhm.
by themselves.
They
So
don't care about Harvard. What does Alabama have? I mean, that's who we're talking about, right? We're talking about the SEC teams to start with. Maybe not all of them,
one
but
and a half billion.
1.5 billion if they came in and go, here's 10 billion to the entire SEC. The entire SEC goes, okay, fine. It's not even going to be a question. And that would be obviously if they could make enough money in return. This is a long game for them.
But I'm only talking about the University of Florida has about 2.5 billion.
Okay.
But I'm just talking about the endowment. the endowment operates separate from the budget that they get from the legislature each year as well. So they also have all of their operating expenses covered.
Yeah.
So again, yes, 10 billion would be more than that amount of money, but then it's like, I think that you would have a real problem where it's like, well, even though I personally know a lot of professors who are like, who resent the fact that big schools have become football teams that happen to have a college attached to them.
Sure.
Or at least that's the way that they're viewed from the outside world. The overwhelming majority of the people that are there, the overwhelming majority of the reason that everybody's there is for the research, for the materials that are available, all that stuff. You would, doing something like this would really run the risk of a pretty massive public outcry and walkout. I would suspect among at a lot of these places. So all in the name
how about a different thought?
And then how many of the schools would also be willing to forego the revenue generated by those sports teams? You know what I mean? Like on an annualized basis, and all the there's a lot of. I mean, I think there's just a lot of maybe again, I see what you're saying, but I think it's a.
So I'll throw a different theory out. And what if instead of ignoring the university, right, for a minute, what if like soccer? Because think about what soccer does, right? They have youth teams, they have their youth squads, they have their essentially farm teams, even though they're just at lower leagues.
Sure.
So you just start your own league, and now you give an alternative like we have in basketball,
Yeah.
where players do not have to go to college. They can go to Europe and play.
Yes.
But maybe you create something more like that. And then you're now separating the student from the student athlete a little bit.
This is so you do what the AFL did. Or you do what the USFL did. Yeah, I mean, except you're thinking of more like a farm team, but you could, if you had Saudi investment fund money, you could actually create a rival to the NFL.
That's more where I'm going with
I
that.
think now that seems more like a possibility.
Imagine grooming players from high school. Instead of them going to high school, they're now playing in a Saudi-sponsored high school league like you do in soccer, and they are just getting massively coached in what that does, and they just never release them unless it becomes more of a transfer-based market.
Sure. I think that there's another part of that though, where if this was something Saudi Arabia is interested in, it seems to me the smarter thing to do is not to open up an open competition against, say, the NFL. It would be to beat the NFL to the punch in what they're trying to do. Roll in on the NFL and what the NFL's done in terms of trying to cultivate a market in Europe and in Mexico and elsewhere. And you roll in and you start your league there.
That's
and
fair,
and you introduce a draft process out of you could easily challenge the monopoly in the United States. That wouldn't be hard to do.
And then you end up with the NBA, where half the players are from overseas, and they're just as good as the players that are from the U.S. nowadays.
Right. If not, absolutely.
If not better in some areas. Like Jokic makes me laugh. Like if you watch that lumbering fool, like he does not look like a basketball player, but that dude is so good. Like it's just like he makes it look so.
He plays every game just waiting to go back home.
It's pretty much. I mean, I live here in Denver, and it's like he is so beloved here.
Sure.
Like just because that's who he is. He's that way everywhere. Like and it's like I love it.
His post-championship press conference when he's just like,
they're
like, what are you gonna do next? He's like, I just want to go home. I'm just like, can't wait to go home. Yeah. Are you excited about the parade? I just want to go home.
Yeah.
like that. But
he's
that's
a gigantic man.
That's like a normal person. You know what I mean? Like that's a normal person reaction.
But that's why he's so beloved.
Sure, and that's surprisingly unusual. Where most of these guys get media training, so you're not allowed to act normal. It's one of the reasons I always like Lamar, because Lamar is like a pretty genuine dude when they do pressers and stuff.
He was joking with the media today. It was funny.
Yeah,
I don't remember what he said, but he made some little crack comment to be funny. It was amusing.
I love him. I mean, I've heard some people talk, tinged with around the edges with a kind of racist, sort of a racist, things about his intelligence, or he doesn't talk so good, not such a good talker or whatever. And I'm like, dude, that guy is so like genuine and normal. Like for you know what I mean? For as young as he is and as much money as he now has and the fame and everything else, he is like a regular dude still. And I love that he's like fine just being a regular dude.
Hey, and anybody who calls him an idiot and then realizes he negotiated his own thing,
Yeah.
like
Mhm.
you are sorely mistaken. He
Yeah.
is not an idiot.
Mhm.
He may not talk in a very well-spoken language, but he is
No.
absolutely got it upstairs.
He does not speak the language of the white bourgeoisie. And that's who cares.
Yep.
Anyway. All right. I don't know.
We
So that's that. Yeah.
we talked more than the NFL this week, boys. Look at that. We
yeah.
touched on several sports.
So I'm sorry, Mike, you were trying to get something in and but I can't tell because I just see words on your screen. I don't see you trying to like interject, so it's hard to stop.
Was that what shuts you up? You look at everyone's face to see if anyone's trying to interject.
Yeah.
That's how he takes cues from your body language to know that you want to interject.
Right.
Jeez.
Nonverbal cues. It's a
I wait
thing.
for the breath. I
it's an
usually just wait for him to come up.
He
for
doesn't
air.
breathe. I mean, you know him as well as I do. He doesn't know how to breathe.
It's an evolutionary adaptation. We learn how to read nonverbal cues.
Jack Black with his inward singing.
It's just like
I'm looking more
the air
like
comes
Jack
in his
Black
ears
these
or
days too.
That's
So
funny.
so what do you got? What do you have to say? What gems do you bring to this conversation?
I'm ready to get rolling with these games because I can already see this is going to be a late one here. We haven't even gotten to the first game. I'm going to start
All
the
right.
timer. How much we spending on each game? 2 minutes?
It's okay. There are only a handful of
3
games we're
minutes.
talking about, and there's a lot of trash out there this week too. So
Yeah,
I think
there's some
we'll be
garbage.
a little quicker.
I think the game that we have to talk about is the game that kicked off the week. The game of the week, Panthers Bears, baby. Panthers Bears.
Woo, I won again.
The mighty Bears, man.
Yeah.
That was I went into the week thinking I'm skipping Thursday night football, and then I had an opportunity to watch it, so I watched.
That was safe.
Yep.
It was on, and so I just put it on while I kind of messed around and did other things.
Sure. And I have to say I enjoyed it. It was it was a fun game to watch.
It wasn't the Colts Patriots, so yeah.
That was the most unwatchable game of the week for sure. My God.
Yeah, terrible.
That was just awful.
Now again, to be fair, I was we had Taekwondo tournament on Saturday. Ella took 3 second places and 2 third places out of 6 events. She did not place in her best event. She got bumped in the first round of combat sparring. So I got up and I was like, I'm going to watch this game a little bit before we have to pack up and get out of the hotel and all this on Sunday. And it was unwatchable from the beginning, and it was just like it never improved. I kept sort of checking back on it. And I'm like, man, this is one of those situations where it's like you really could just walk away and come back and have missed nothing. But I did want to say something about this. Before while I look up what I have here on my phone. If you guys want to talk about it, feel free.
Are we talking about the Colts Patriots game?
Yeah, Colts Patriots.
Yeah,
what is there to say about the Bears Panthers? I mean,
no, I'm fine. I'm fine moving on. That's why I was making sure. I mean, is my big question, is Mac Jones done? Because we've been saying this for a while. I've said this from the beginning of the season. He is not a good quarterback. Like I've been saying this actually for a couple of years now, which is fun because I'm gonna hold that over my buddy's head. I'm just waiting for the season to be done, and I just don't see it. And I mean, the latest word right now, I don't know if you guys have heard this, but there's going to be a mutual parting of ways potentially at the end of the season between Belichick and Kraft, which
that it's time to go.
They could be the worst team in the league right now.
No, they are.
They're in the conversation. I think their defense keeps them out of last place, but I'm not sure who I would put below them yet. I have to look at the teams a little closer, but I like Arizona might be worse.
Arizona has a worse roster.
That's what I mean. Like they do have
Kyler Murray, just like Josh Dobbs. Josh Dobbs kept them competitive.
Right.
Kyler Murray. And look, I'm not sold on Kyler Murray. I'm not sold on him as the future of that franchise.
Well,
I'm not sold on a quarterback that small. I mean, you've heard what I said about Bryce Young, but at least with Kyler Murray, when he gets out of the pocket and he has a little little green in front of him,
Mhm.
his athleticism is undeniable. I mean, you
Yeah.
see his little legs just churning like a motor. That little guy can roll. And
Somehow that was inappropriate. I just know
I know.
it.
So he's he's a little Speedy Gonzalez or Mighty Mouse or whatever. And that, I mean, again, I'm not convinced that he's a guy to build a franchise around, but his athleticism is undeniable. I mean, he's an incredible athlete.
Absolutely.
So I
Yeah.
guess the question for you guys would be this: is it Carolina or is it New England? Those are the two teams to me that are the bottom of the league.
Well, I might argue that it's the Giants now, but
yeah,
Because of injuries, I
Giants.
would agree.
because of
Yes.
injuries and everything else. But yeah, I think Carolina. I think the Patriots are the worst team in the league. I think Carolina.
Yeah.
So this is what I wanted to bring up. I think Carolina has. There are a few pieces there. Not
Sure.
not
And they're
many. I
very
mean,
young.
they're
They're very
very
young.
young. I don't know that Chuba Hubbard is the guy. Miles Sanders looks terrible in that offense, but they
Yeah.
also don't seem to know what to do with him.
I also don't know how good Frank Reich is as a coach. Like, it's like I'm not entirely ready to judge him on this performance yet, but like he didn't do great in Indy.
No, he
No.
didn't. But but Indy was not unlike now, perpetually a middle of the road kind of a team, a frustrating kind of team, where it's
Yes.
like Indy always felt like they were a couple of key guys away from being, genuinely competitive. But then they just never worked. They never did it. But yeah, I mean, I'm not sure. But I mean, didn't Reich brought in Cade McNown to work with Bryce Young. They have there's another good coach there. I mean, they've got they've got some talent there at the at coach and as coaches. But I just don't know. I don't know how good that team is. I was trying to look. Oh yeah, that's who I was trying.
You doing
okay,
all right
Mike?
over there, buddy?
Man, my knees are shot. I just went down on one knee, and
Your sounds are making me
My
uncomfortable.
listen, you get down on if there's a hole in your wall, you shouldn't
Yeah,
necessarily
exactly.
get down on one knee and look in. I mean, you do you. But,
He's wearing the robe.
yeah, I know. You should not get down on one knee and look in. You should just back up to it.
That was just a terrible game.
I think about praying. You think about that. Okay, good.
So here's what I wanted to say. This is why I was going to make the argument that the Patriots are the worst team in the league. Because they have Ramondre Stevenson. And then after him, name one other person on offense that you think is worth mentioning.
No, I mean everybody talks about Kendrick Bourne a little bit, but I mean he is injured, right? I think he's injured now, but even still, like, no, I agree. I think the problem with the Patriots you're seeing is the last few years of Belichick being the GM, like we talked last week. There is a lot of bad football being played by that team right now.
I mean, the Colts should be embarrassed that they only won that game 10-6. And I feel bad for Gardner Minshew. I mean, he really seemed like a better. I mean, I knew he wasn't a good quarterback, but he certainly seemed more competent than he's looked the last couple of weeks. But that's okay. I think maybe he got a little lucky there with Minshew mania down there in Jacksonville, and that they got a little hot at the right time, and I don't know, it worked or whatever. I don't know.
I mean, I do still like it. That's why I asked the question a little bit, though, is because I agree with everything you said about the offensive side of the ball, but I think the Patriots defensively are still very sound. And I do think they're a harder team to score on than people realize, but the offense is so bad that it puts that defense in horrible positions a lot.
I would say this, though, too. I mean, I hear what you're saying, but who are the people? Who do they have on defense that is,
I don't watch them close enough. Proudly, I can tell you that to know the.
So
I mean, Judon's hurt. So I
Yeah,
mean
they
that's
got
definitely
Jabril Peppers,
yeah. I mean they
Jabril
have
Peppers, um,
Jonathan
uh,
Jones.
yeah.
Jennings.
He's had a
But like, so I was thinking about this, and I was trying to decide whether I thought, I was going back to the 2017 Cleveland Browns, and I think this might be the best example, the best comparison that I can think of for what this Patriots team is. Now, the Browns went 0 and 16 that year, so this is obviously a better team than that. But like, they had Deshaun Kaiser at their as quarterback as a rookie, and he started, basically the whole season. And we all know Deshaun Kaiser went on to a great career as a Pro Bowler. You know, they had remember Isaiah Crowell? I mean, who was a decent running back, but he was no Ramondre Stevenson. So you go, okay, the Patriots have a better running back. But then you look and you're like, who are the wide receivers for that team that couldn't win a game? Corey Coleman and Ricardo Lewis, two guys I don't even know anything about. They had
nope.
uh, they had nobody at tight end. They have an offensive line that included Kevin Zeitler, the Raven, current Raven Kevin Zeitler. But like, I don't know the rest of that offensive line. But on defense, that Browns team had a rookie Myles Garrett, right? They had, like, again, some other guys didn't plan out. But they had the Nigerian Nightmare was on that team. Ogba, Emmanuel Ogba.
Oh,
And then they had Jason McCourty, right? They had Jabril Peppers, who is currently where, did you say, Mike?
Um,
New England.
New England.
who we just New England, yeah,
New England.
where we were just talking about.
And they had Joe Schobert, who looked like he was going to be a good middle linebacker for a few years, and then I don't know what happened to him. Maybe he got hurt. I'm not sure. So I was looking at that roster, and I'm just like, they had Kenny Britt was like their number 3 wide receiver on that team, somehow behind two guys you've never heard of, and he was fine. He was, he was like fine as a number 3 guy or whatever. But I'm looking at the talent on those two teams, and it's like, yeah, but I don't see the Myles Garrett on
Right.
on the Patriots.
No,
Their
that's
Myles
true.
Garrett is Judon, who is 29 or something probably now.
And he's hurt,
maybe,
right? So,
and hurt. But I mean, he's been in the league 7-8 years at this point.
Mhm.
The Browns
He
were
was still
bad,
playing at a high level before he got hurt, though.
of course. But my point is that the Browns, I looked at that 0 victory team, and I'm like, you can at least see there's a couple of building blocks there. There's a couple of veterans, but there's a lot of rookies, many of whom didn't
That I
pan out.
agree with you on.
But
I
they had a
totally
couple
agree
of
with you
guys,
on that.
like for the Browns in 2017, you're looking at Joe Schobert, and you're like, this guy, I mean, I think he had 142 tackles that year. Like, you're looking at a guy like solo tackles. You're looking at a guy and you're going, this guy's going to be fine. Like, he's going to anchor our defense for years. And Myles Garrett, you're looking at and going, man, this guy's going to be good. He's not, but he's going to be. And you've got some players there, and you're like, you have you've got Jabril Peppers, you've got Jason McCourty, who was like 27 or something at the time, 25 maybe. You've got some pieces where you're like, I can see where this team could go from here. And you look at the Browns today and you go, yeah. I can see how they built from that foundation to where they are now. The offense still kind of stinks, but the defense, certainly, those building blocks seem to be in place. And even though those guys aren't there, they've moved them and brought in other building blocks. I mean, like,
Sure.
I don't see where the Patriots have any talent to like bring in the building blocks.
And they spent money on the wrong players.
Mm-hmm.
Like Juju Smith-Schuster spending money on him. Like he wasn't good in Kansas City with Patrick Mahomes. What made them think he was going to be good with Mac Jones?
He
or
wasn't
Bailey
even
Zappi
good
for that matter.
The only reason he was good in Pittsburgh was because Roethlisberger had more time in the
Antonio
pocket to
Brown.
throw.
And Antonio Brown.
Antonio Brown. But remember, Roethlisberger had so much time in the pocket
Yeah.
because he was impossible to bring down. So, like, this was a guy who would like routinely take 5 seconds to throw a ball. So Juju had time to get open. Like, as soon as he went down to Kansas City, where Mahomes is having to make decisions faster because that O-line has never like been great at protecting him.
Well, and Mahomes is sneaky underrated with his mobility. Because that's the thing. Like, the only reason they're as good as they are this year is because of his mobility to keep plays alive long enough for him to find one of their terrible receivers somewhere just wandering wide open. And I do think you're right about that with Juju, is that he needs a guy like Roethlisberger can't be brought down, or a highly mobile quarterback, and
Right,
that's
right,
not
right.
Mac Jones.
But then he went down, but then he had Mahomes and it didn't work for him.
No, it
So,
didn't.
yeah, I mean, I don't know what the problem is with Juju, but I mean, I've never thought he was great. When the Steelers let him go, a lot of people were surprised. And it was like, to me, it was confirmation that like he wasn't as good as
Yeah,
like his numbers were
he, sh-
better than he was. I mean, like, and we see that all the
he
time.
showed promise early, but yeah, I would agree. Like there was a ceiling there.
And
You
you're
could
right.
see it.
Lot
Antonio Brown is taking the top off of a defense. So
Yeah,
he's getting a lot of man coverage, and
yeah.
and he's able to manipulate that. He's not, not able to be a number
this
one.
mock draft has them taking Drake May, a quarterback from North Carolina, fourth.
Who, the Patriots?
Yep.
I think May might end up being the number one overall. Caleb Williams hasn't played well the last couple of weeks.
It could
But
be. Yeah.
This
the
one has Marvin Harrison going 1, and then Caleb
Ooh,
Williams going 2.
that's not going to happen.
Harrison
Marvin
going
Harrison's
1
not.
to the Bears. That's weird.
The
Yeah.
only, I was going to say the only way that happens is if the Bears are committed to Justin Fields.
I mean, which they,
I think they will be.
they're
It might be.
the
He's
thing
been better than
is,
Kyler Murray, that's for sure.
what the Bears are saying, the Bears are signaling that there will be no coaching or quarterback change at the end of the season. But like that is what you would signal at this point in the season.
Sure.
You
Yeah.
want Justin Fields to go out there and see if he is your guy. And you don't want to fill his head full of doubts. So, you want to keep him as confident as possible. Send him out there and see if there's still something to build on. How they keep Eberflus after this year, I don't know. That's baffling to me. But anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. So that's my point. I think the Patriots, I really was like looking for a team to compare them to. And I think the 2017 Browns is a close comparison.
I think the Patriots, their future is definitely not bright at the
No,
moment, which it's funny because they tend to go through this cycle though, right? Because then they peaked at one point in the 90s where they went to the Super Bowl that 1 year.
yeah.
And then I feel like they went dormant again for like several years. And then all of a sudden they popped back up with the basically luck of the draft with getting Tom Brady.
Sure.
And having him fit the
yeah.
system the way that he did. But they seem to go through massive swings of being good and being bad.
But when they were good in the 90s, that was Pete Carroll. They were good. They went to the Super Bowl. And then that was
the Rams.
That was when they lost.
I'm just talking
they
from a
lost to
team
the Packers.
culture.
They lost to Favre when Bledsoe lost to Favre, and that was what, like 98, 97 or 98, or 96, something like that.
Didn't Flutie go 1 year too?
With no.
As a fan,
No.
yeah.
As a fan. No, he took the Bills to the playoffs, but he did not get to the Super Bowl.
I can't remember.
He was actually very underrated. I thought Flutie was very good.
I mean, Flutie's a guy you want to root for. How could you not? Because he's Bryce Young. Like
he's Ryan Fitzpatrick. It's who he is. Like,
well, except that he was this tall.
Right, but I mean, like as far as the type of player, right? They were more successful than they got credit for being, and a lot of fun to watch. But they had their weak spots that definitely shone at certain times.
Sure. I mean, and with Flutie, I mean, again, I think it's good.
Flutie flakes, baby. Gotta get them Flutie flakes.
I think it's good. Well, part of the reason Flutie became so prominent in Buffalo was because he okay, I'm going to take a digression. I remember reading this article in Baltimore about the year that Cal Ripken moved over to third base from shortstop. And I read this article and it really made a lot of sense to me. And it works for works in a lot of sports. After Brooks Robinson, a legend, an absolute legend, retired, left baseball. The guy that replaced him was a guy named Doug DeCinces. Doug DeCinces was like a career 275 hitter who played good defense, nothing great, good, solid hitter. This is back in the 80s, when like 70s and 80s, when, a guy hitting 14, 15 home runs was a power guy, you win the home run title with 30. You know what I mean? Like every once in a while you'd get a Dave Kingman would hit 40, but he batted 195 and struck out 215 times. I remember, like in 83 when the Orioles went to the World Series, Eddie Murray hit, I think 34 home runs and was like among the, was one of biggest power hitters in baseball.
Yep. I remember
Anyway.
Kevin Mitchell, I think, won it with 48 that one
Yeah,
year.
yeah, that was in the
And that was
90s
like
when the ball started jumping a little bit more. But anyway, Doug
50 was
DeCinces
unheard of.
the point is Doug DeCinces was a good third baseman.
Yeah, he was.
The Orioles fans hated
Solid.
him. Fans hated him. Hated him.
He didn't dive like Brooks. He didn't dive eight feet out of third base.
So they ran him out of town. He went to the Angels. He's, ends up being an all-star for the Angels a couple times. Has a good career. He's not a Hall of Famer. He's a good third baseman for this whole career. Mm-hmm. After Doug DeCinces, the Orioles have the likes of Todd Cruz, Floyd Rayford. We get all these schlubs that come in and play third base. No idea who's going to be. Until Cal Ripken moves over there in '97, third base was a black hole for the Orioles. And the only reason it worked for Cal to move to third base was because we had Mike Bordick, who was one of the best defensive shortstops in baseball, to take over at short. So you go, so anyway, back to this article. The article basically said this. The problem is when you replace a legend, you have to be a legend to replace a legend. If you're not, even if you're good, the fans will hate you for it. They'll hate you because you're replacing a legend. Mm-hmm. And so until Cal Ripken moved to third, it was like the team could never actually get a third baseman because unless they were Brooks Robinson, everybody hated them because he was still fresh in your mind. Brooks was still calling games and showing up at the field, like you see him. And so you remember. And it didn't happen for Cal because Cal was still on the team when he got replaced at the position and he plugged the hole at third. You replace a legend with a legend 20 years later, but he's playing side by side with his replacement. So there's no animosity. It's fine. He's still there. And so I think about that, like, this is kind of a thing that seems to plague, it really plagues teams when you do have a legendary player that comes in and goes, there is always going to be this problem. You can never live up to the guy whose footsteps you're walking in. Sure. And it becomes even harder to evaluate whether or not a guy is good. Aaron Rodgers solved that problem for Brett Favre. Jordan Love, he looks good in a lot of fourth quarters. Seems like he starts to figure it out later in game. He did look good in the fourth quarter this time, but he hasn't been able to put it all together. And if he was just an ordinary rookie on a mediocre team, you would look at the things that Jordan Love is doing and you would say, yeah, that's kind of what you expect, like struggles from a rookie, especially not a first round rookie, a second, third, fourth round rookie. He's doing a lot of what you would expect. Now, I know he's not a rookie, but he basically is. He has not had game time until this year. And you go, he's replacing not one legend, but two legends, back-to-back legends. It's an impossible situation.
But it's also very hard when you have another guy who is a rookie in Houston who's absolutely just killing it.
Sure. But I mean, that's not typical. I mean, I remember Peyton Manning's rookie year, and he was awful. Terrible. He was awful.
No, you're not wrong. That's what makes it even more special is rookies very seldom do rookies actually have this kind of impact.
More and more. Troy Aikman, I remember, went 1-15 as a rookie. It was awful. These guys, but more and more guys do have success right out of college because the coaching has gotten better at the college level. Yes. There's more coaches running pro style offenses.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So the jump is significantly different for a lot of guys, but not every guy.
And most of them are now playing all year round anyway.
Yeah.
Back in the day, I mean, you didn't even.
Yeah,
these guys didn't get a sample of what it's like until they were at training camp.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I do. I mean, I agree with you, Gare, but I think that that having a CJ Stroud makes it much harder. But this is the thing, I'm hard on Bryce Young because I think this is a guy you shouldn't have drafted, right? I'm hard on Bryce Young because this is a guy I think you shouldn't have drafted number 1 overall. This is not a guy that
they're regretting this for sure.
And I don't think he's a guy that you build a team around. He's too small, and I'm sorry that that's the case. I'm not like some sort of height elitist. But when it comes to, this is a physical game and your physical attributes matter. You wouldn't draft a 6'1" center because you thought he's a real smart guy. You just wouldn't.
That typical trap that teams fall into, right? Where they so worried about missing that next special thing
Right.
And to not go with the thing that, like, no, you can tell, you've seen what, like, what you're getting, and that doesn't make it less. It just means, okay, maybe you're not as in for such a big surprise.
So,
Yep.
so just
You know
real
who I
quick.
like?
Oh, go
Just
ahead.
to let you know. I was just gonna say what I like now that you guys are talking, the prototypical like draft pick is that kid Josh Dobbs. I think that kid has got something special going on.
I agree
Nice.
with you.
That's a
I
good
agree. I think
segue.
Dobbs looks good. But hold on, before you segue, the reason I brought up Brooks Robinson, Cal Ripken, to bring it all the way back
Mhm.
around,
Okay,
this is why Doug Flutie was so beloved in Buffalo.
Oh,
Because after Jim Kelly left, Buffalo struggled. And Flutie brought
Sure.
them back to respectability.
And he was fun.
And he was
what was the
sure.
time difference between the two? I don't remember.
It was only a few years. It was a few years.
Mhm.
So it was a few years of struggle, and then Flutie took him back to the playoffs.
Because they had that
And
guy Rick Johnson or Brad
Rob
no,
Johnson.
not Brad Johnson.
Rob
Rob
Johnson.
Johnson. Yeah, Rob Johnson.
Right.
Yeah, he was awful. And that's the thing. Flutie ends up becoming a legendary figure because the guy that replaced the legend didn't cut it. They had somebody else there, I think, too. Rob Johnson. I think there was one other draft pick they had that sucked. I was going to say JP Lossman, but that was later. Anyway, so
Got it.
it's what. But then when Flutie goes to San Diego, they couldn't have cared less. They were like, we're fine. Like Drew Brees,
Right.
we want to see what Drew Brees can do. What I mean? Like
That's
they
the
were
thing.
pretty.
They didn't even want to give Breeze a chance.
Well,
That's the whole reason he left.
No, they wanted to see what Drew Brees could do when after Flutie was there. So
I know they were. I mean, they passed on two really good quarterbacks.
And then
When you think about that, to get to Rivers.
But the thing with Flutie the thing with Brees was, he had to develop. He was a second round pick who needed to develop. Another guy, not a big guy, and so he had to develop his game. He's not as small as Flutie, but he was like bigger. He was, I think, only 6 feet tall. So he the year that they had the opportunity to draft Rivers was the year that Brees actually had his breakout year. And you go, and I'm sorry, I hated Philip Rivers in college because I'm a Maryland guy, and he was a dick. But I saw him at NC State, and I'm like, this guy's a pro quarterback. Like this guy,
Yeah.
On any other team, Philip Rivers has a Super Bowl ring. The Chargers are very good at figuring out how to waste quarterback talent. They're very good at it. They continue that tradition today. Like how to put too much on one guy and not put enough pieces around him, and hope for the best. So let's use that to segue into the Chargers, where I think we should take some of Brandon Staley's stupid beard hair and sacrifice it over some sort of altar to get his ass out of there, so that Jason Herbert is not Justin Herbert is not wasted, because he is a fun quarterback to watch.
It is, but
wasted.
But listen, man, the Lions, damn, outside of that Ravens game, they're going to give my Vikings a run.
Yeah, well, but this is the thing about the Chargers. Like, hey, look, we needed a good old fashioned shootout. That was good to see one.
We need to let Mike have his moment. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah,
go ahead. Let's go ahead
moment.
and talk about your Vikings for just half a second.
Yeah, I mean, I really like Josh Dobbs. I'm on board.
Are we at that game? Are we going? We can go there.
Yeah, let's talk about it. We can go back to the Chargers. I mean, I have some thoughts about that, but we can go back to the.
Oh, we definitely got to go back to that game. That was a fun game to watch.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, there's the texture in that game, right? I said I want a Josh Dobbs jersey that has like all the teams that he played on in patchwork.
Yeah. Excuse me.
He has stellar, man. Look, he runs for touchdowns, throws for touchdowns, just solid, and that team is solid. He stepped in. It might be a better dynamic than when they had Cousins, I think.
I was just going to say the same thing. I mean, with him, his mobility, right? Because that mobility really changes things. And when they get Justin Jefferson back, that's going to be a very interesting team to watch.
Scary.
I agree. I can't believe that I'm saying this, but I think when And I did what 2 weeks ago I said this. I said the Vikings are cooked, and then I said I thought the Vikings were cooked, but they got Josh Dobbs, so I think that they're actually going to be okay with Dobbs. I like him. He's a guy who, this is a guy who was what he was like a mid-round draft pick, who has played for a bunch of teams. He got a chance to start with Cleveland when he was too young and didn't know what he was doing on a bad team.
For sure.
But I
he needed to develop quite a bit.
He needed to develop quite a bit, and I think he's a guy who he's my God, he's obviously a super smart guy. I think something has
What
clicked.
is his side job? What does he do on the side? Like they did
Rocket science.
That's what I was going to say. I was going to make that joke, but I knew it was something that's usually considered highly intellectual like that.
Yeah, he's a rocket scientist.
That's
It's crazy.
Of course he is. Of course he is. That's how he can start for a team a week later.
I mean,
Who is that? Is he really a rocket? This kid, Josh Dobbs, is a rocket scientist?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I mean, kid, he's 29. I mean, he's like.
Oh, I didn't know he was that old.
Oh, he's been in the league for years now. He was with the Browns. He was with the Steelers, the Cardinals, somebody else.
I think I remember him when he was with the Steelers.
Didn't he get drafted by the Steelers?
I think he got drafted by the Steelers, and then he went to the Browns. Then he won the starting job with the Browns. So he, I think I think it's going to be really interesting. The Vikings are going to have to really evaluate the rest of this season, whether or not they might want to move forward with Dobbs, or because they well, no,
not you.
I was going to say, because Cousins is not under contract, and Dobbs might be the way to move forward for them, which is crazy to say.
Was this Cousins last year?
Yeah, his contract.
Yeah.
Yes.
That was a big ass contract too, man.
Yeah.
And Dobbs, I mean, if he keeps doing think about as he gets even more comfortable, that team, who knows what they can do. The defense has been really good too. I mean, that was one thing I want to touch on with the Vikings. They, I know I did this in fantasy. I don't know if you noticed it, but I was laughing. I'm like, who picks the Vikings defense for fantasy? But I'm like, no. But if you look the last 5 weeks, they've been averaging 2 turnovers or more a week. And I'm like, no, they're turning some things around on the defensive side of the ball. So if they can get that corrected, hey, Mike, I might be on board, buddy.
I'm telling you, there's room on the train.
The defense is playing good enough. The defense is playing good enough. They are in the soft part of their schedule. So that is, I think that starts to change soon. So we'll see.
Let me see.
But I mean, they go to the Broncos this week, and we'll talk about that. The Broncos are playing good enough to win as well. They're not impressive, but they're playing good enough to win.
I mean, we'll get to that. I want to talk about that game, when we get to the picks, because I'm actually really looking forward to that game this week.
Yeah, it should be a good game. All right, so All right, so real quick, and then one other thing just to say about that Vikings Saints game. First off, two other things to say. Jordan Addison looks fantastic. I mean,
Absolutely.
This guy, and to bring it, I want to keep that in our back pocket to go back to the Chargers. But the Saints, they're just not good. They are fine. They're in the worst division in football.
Totally agree with all that.
But they're
middle of the road.
They're middle of the road. Mm.
And I really think if you look at the team too, the talent doesn't explain that. I really think this is a coaching situation.
Yeah, for sure.
It feels that to me.
Yeah, it's there's something that needs to change in New Orleans because there's certainly a lot of talent. And I mean, Derek Carr has been very disappointing. I don't quite understand it.
He's not good.
No, he's not good this year. That's for sure.
Jimmy Wenson is back in the game. I didn't realize Jimmy Wenson came in and played.
Yeah, he actually did. He looked okay too, coming back in.
He looks good, and then he throws, a lot of interceptions.
Yep, that's what'll end up happening.
Yeah. All right, so back to the Jordan Addison thing. I bring him up because Keenan Allen is amazing, and the Chargers have gotten more mileage out of a dink, dunk, and slot Keenan Allen than you could ever imagine. I mean, it's screen to Eckler, slant to Allen, screen to Eckler, slant to Allen. And then, when you've got Mike Williams, you have another, big catch radius guy, big body, big catch radius. But you've got Everett, you got Parham, who are stationary, large men, who just like I'm going to stand here, throw it at me. It's going to take 3 people to bring me down. And that is the extent of what they are bringing to the table. Mike Williams doesn't bring much more. He brings an incredible catch radius, but he is not like fast. He is not, he is a good possession guy.
He's just big. He's a big dude. Yeah.
Why in the hell the Chargers don't draft a speedy receiver? I cannot imagine. Why they have Quentin Johnson, who seems to be his biggest asset, seems to be his ability to drop 5 passes a game. I'm baffled by this guy and by that draft pick. When Zay Flowers, I mean, look, don't get me wrong, very grateful they didn't take Zay. but I mean, honestly, when I was watching the draft, I'm thinking, all right, we got to get a wide receiver. We're going to get Zay or Jordan Addison. Like, that's who we're going to take. And I mean, I'm thinking the surely the Chargers are going to take Zay Flowers or maybe Jackson Smith Najigba, but like, I'm like, they need a burner and Zay is that. And right. And then they took Quentin Johnson. It's like, what does this guy bring to the team that you don't already have?
Yeah,
except that he's much worse at it. I mean, he drops the man.
He's not been good. He's not been good.
And that's not to say he can't figure it out, but like, even if he does figure it out, what does he bring that's different than Keenan Allen and Mike Williams?
Right.
No,
I agree with you. I agree with you to that.
I don't get it.
For sure. No, and I don't remember, honestly. I mean, I do watch the draft every year, but I don't remember all the hype around what differentiated those receivers, right? Because there's kind of a cluster of them right there, that are all actually doing pretty decent right now. But
three of the
except
four.
For him, three of the four are right. And
I mean, Smith and Jigba seems to be coming on lately.
Right, that's kind of what I mean.
He was start to start, so yeah.
Yeah, Addison and Flowers, they've definitely had a lot. I mean, but if you think about it, like, not really necessarily. Well, yes, with Addison, I mean, the only person really in front of him was JJ. But with Flowers, let's be honest, like, the Ravens have needed that guy for so long. And in Jigba, he's got Metcalf and Lockett sitting there, so he's not going to get the same looks right out of the gate. It's going to take more time.
No.
So,
and Lockett is the burner. They don't need a burner there because Lockett's the burner. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you though. It doesn't make sense. It almost just feels like they fall into this culture of this is our kind of guy, and that's all they know how to draft.
It's infuriating because, again, I mean, I'm sorry to keep saying, but I'm like, you've got Eckler, who is not only just one of the best running backs in football, but is one of the coolest stories. Because I mean, this was like a backup dude who just like, I mean, I remember a few years ago when you and I kind of talked about him as a backup who had to start it was like out of the blues. Like, I don't know anything about this guy. One of us, one of us picked him up off the waiver wire. We're like, I don't know anything about this guy, but like, they got to run the ball. Like, and he's like, all of a sudden it's like, holy crap. They've got the second coming of Marshall Faulk. Who knew? And
I mean, honestly, he's a lot like Christian McCaffrey is.
Yeah.
Right. They're very similar type of players. And, I mean, you'd be lucky to have either one of them on your team.
Sure. And you've got
Herbert had a good day. 4 touchdowns, 325. Damn.
Yeah, well, again, I mean,
it was a fun game.
Herbert is I have a soft spot for Justin Herbert. I have a soft spot for the Chargers. I had a soft spot for Dan Fouts. And just historically, I always like this great quarterback who can't ever seem to like get enough of a team around him to get to the Super Bowl, barely to the playoffs. You know what I mean? Like, I always had a soft spot for the Chargers, and that continues. And I'm like, Justin Herbert, I'm feeling like it's like, this guy is so talented. The league would be better if they would just put a burner around, on that team. I'd like to see what he could do, with somebody that could take the top off a defense. And then, my God, I mean, if you had a guy that could take the top off the defense, what is Eckler capable of? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you
No,
have
you're
to make the
exactly right.
defensive backs take 2 steps backwards, what can he do out of that, in the flat? I mean, it's hard to imagine.
You can have your soft spot for Herbert. I have a soft spot for Jared Goff, buddy. Like
I like
the
them
way
both.
but that dude, I do too. But what that dude went through in LA, and then
Yeah.
kind of having a rebirth for him. Like they're a really good team, and he is at the helm of that offense. I mean,
Yeah,
he's playing really well.
he's playing
Yep.
very well. The thing with Jared Goff is I think it's his limitations are really obvious at this point. And that's the biggest thing with it. Like, the Ravens game made that really, really obvious that this is a guy who it's like he requires the run game to function.
Sure.
He requires certain things have to fall in place for Jared Goff.
Agreed. It
But
makes him a lot
yeah,
better.
I am glad to. I mean, this is a guy drafted first overall who's seen as a bust, and
But I think
I'm glad that he's redeemed himself.
I think so much of the credit, and I mean, I think you're going to see me be the big hot next head coach, and that's Ben Johnson.
Oh, no question.
That offensive coordinator, like, I don't know if you guys watched this game or not, but I had the 2 TV set up, and I normally put the red zone on one, and then on the other TV, I put like whatever the game is I want to watch.
Mm-hmm.
This was the game I had up, and it just felt like Ben Johnson had a scheme in place where somebody was running wide open, like every single time. Like there was always somebody wide open. And I'm like, that dude to call that kind of play. I mean, it was just very different. Like the Chargers played very good offense too, but I just kept noticing the open guy. Like, how is this dude open every single time? Which then makes your quarterback look special, of course. So that kind of tying it back into Goff, I do think it's the offensive coordinator that's really helped him in a lot of ways.
Oh, no question. And I know Dan Campbell is a guy who they like to play for.
Love him.
I mean,
love the dude. I fell in love with him during Hard Knocks, like last year when they did it. I'm like, this dude's different. Like he's just different.
Yeah,
he's a good guy.
I have to say that to shift gears and go to another. That was certainly the most entertaining game of the week.
For sure.
The
defense.
no defense. I wanted to say though just to touch on it, so we do. I just cannot. If the Steelers continue to manage to win games with an offense
which
that could not beat most West Texas high school teams.
That's not fair. Their quarterback, but their offense good. Their offense actually didn't look that bad this week. Of course, they were playing the Packers.
Yeah, the Packers. The Packers who are pretty middle of the road defensively. They're a slightly above average defense, I would say. But but yeah, if they keep going like this, Tomlin has to be the coach of the year. I just don't.
Sure.
And I'm wondering how much longer they're just like, yep, Kenny Pickett's our guy. Like this is our guy because this guy he is not good.
They're running the ball pretty well.
Well, they've just started to run it well. They were not running it well most of the beginning of the season. First 5-6 weeks they weren't able to run. But yeah, I just am baffled by it. The Packers, had a chance, came close, didn't pull it off. The Steelers just keep figuring out how to win, and I mean, I give all the credit to Tomlin because that's really what's making that happen. I mean, he is doing the best coaching job of his career this season.
I do not disagree.
He's doing a great job. If they play like they did, if they can run the ball like that and then spread it around, they're going to keep winning.
I honestly think if they went to Trubisky, they'd probably be in better shape. I know that he comes with problems. He's the Jameis Winston of the Pittsburgh Steelers, basically, right?
Yeah.
But
he has a higher ceiling.
Yeah, he's got a lot higher ceiling. He'll have those games, and if you control him, who knows?
Yeah,
but
I mean, he has a higher ceiling. Pickett's not good. They like him because he's a Pittsburgh boy, but that's
they're really only a quarterback away if you think about it, because their receiving core is top notch. Freiermuth is coming back probably this week. They've got serviceable running backs. that are better if you have a good
I think
quarterback.
Najee's a pretty good running back. It's just
Well, if you have he's
he's
Gus Edwards. No offense to Edwards, but in a
yeah.
lot of ways, like he's better because of Lamar. And so, if they had their version, like it doesn't have to be a running quarterback, but just a better quarterback that was more of a true threat, it would open more lanes for it.
Sure. Which I don't want to go to Lamar just yet.
No,
Shift gears to what has
no,
to
I
be
have a lot
my
of
worst pick of
thoughts.
the week. My worst pick of the
Mhm.
week.
Mhm.
The 49ers and the red hot Jaguars.
Ooh.
Man, now I did not expect the Jags to
Whoops.
win that game, but I thought they'd keep it close because both of them coming off a bye, and as bad as the Niners had looked 2 weeks in a row, I thought, well, the Jags will keep it close. Oof.
You
I
know who won this game?
Who?
This guy right here won this game. And San Francisco, whew, laid the smackdown 34-3.
Yeah, Purdy looked good. Everybody looked good. I
Hey,
mean, it was
I'm back to saying it. They're the best team in the league, and I don't. And getting Chase Young as well, like
Yeah.
it's almost not fair. Like it really. I mean, Debo. It's funny how much Debo really makes that offense tick, though,
yeah.
because it's almost like he leaves such a void that's what exposed Purdy in those 2 or 3 weeks or whatever when
Because
they didn't look as good.
he's the Swiss Army knife.
Yeah, it's
I
really
mean,
interesting. I mean, I'm glad Debo negotiated the way he did for his contract, but it has never been more apparent than the last few weeks and then this week again.
yeah,
I tell you, McCaffrey, I think, is the MVP of that offense, though.
Of course,
McCaffrey,
agreed.
I mean,
Well,
that guy is just
it depends on how you define MVP.
right.
I mean, because if
I
you
mean, he's
look
going to
at
be the
the
stat
impact,
monster.
right? But if you look at the impact that Debo had on that team, they lost 3 games straight while he was injured.
no question.
I mean, yeah, we've seen Debo carry 5 times for 12 yards, catch 3 or 4 passes for another 18 or whatever. But
Yeah.
but what he does in terms of pulling defenses, in terms of pulling specific players on a defense into coverage and things like that, because of all the things that he does, he opens up Ayuk, he opens up Kittle, he opens up McCaffrey.
Yes,
And
agreed.
I mean, he is constantly taking a number one safety or cornerback with him, or he's pulling a linebacker over or whatever. Yeah.
And I'm gonna add one more thing on top of this because, like, if you remember before they got McCaffrey, they had Elijah Mitchell. They had some good. I mean, Raheem Mostert was there too.
Yeah.
Like they
the
had
monster.
like those two guys, and they were a good team. But McCaffrey is special. We don't disagree on that. Like it's
Sure.
just what he does is he levels them up even another level, and that's what they saw. But I do think Debo's the MVP of that offense.
Yeah.
Just because he makes it all go.
George Kittle averaged 38 yards a catch.
Yeah, it's crazy.
116 yards a touchdown on 3 receptions.
Those are Keaton Mitchell numbers.
Tight end. It's unbelievable.
We're not going there yet.
Not going there
yet. I don't. I think the Jags just got punched in the mouth by the best team in the league. I think that's all it is. I think the Jags. The only question that's going to come for me from the Jags is, where's Trevor Lawrence? Because he has been really inconsistent all year.
Yeah.
And he has more weapons than he's ever had. So I'm not really sure what's going on there.
I'm really starting to wonder about Calvin Ridley too.
Well, sure, that's what I mean. But I mean, yes, those two kind of go hand in hand in a way.
I thought Ridley was a good receiver who was poorly used, but I'm starting to wonder if maybe what we saw in Atlanta is his ceiling, because it seems to be his ceiling in Jacksonville as well. So like maybe that's just who he is. Maybe he's just he's just a slight improvement over a Gabe Davis, a guy who disappears way too often, but certainly has the talent when it shows up.
Right.
Although with fewer drops. But that's because Gabe, we'll get to that one too. All right. I want to save that one for later because I have some things to say. But all right. Bucks Titans, no point in even talking about this. Baker the cake maker, nice game.
Yeah,
nothing special.
No,
nothing special, and neither of those teams are special. I do really like Roshan White, though. He's really impressed me. A much better running back than I thought he was going to be. He seemed fine, but he is
Right.
I'm starting to think of him as special. Um, you know,
Nice.
like what you might call a mid tier one, top of tier two kind of guy.
Ooh.
He seems
Yeah.
like seems like a guy that can get things done because the Titans defense is pretty stout, and he,
Mhm.
like he looked good against that. So,
Yeah.
um, Giants Cowboys, no point in even talking about this.
Ugh.
I think the Giants would be foolish to win a game the rest of the season. No, I mean they just would be.
I don't know
It
if
would be
they
silly.
can.
Well, I'm not sure if they can either, but Waller's going to come back. And I don't know if Daniel Jones, what his story is. Is he coming back this season?
I don't
I
think
think
so. I think,
Yeah.
Danny's brother.
and honestly, why would you
he
bring
blew
him
his
back
Well,
Achilles.
anyway?
last year of his contract too, though. He's donezo.
Yeah,
Who?
he's out.
No. Who? Daniel
Daniel
Jones?
Jones. Oh no,
No,
that's
no,
right.
no.
He
He just signed a big one. That's
That's
why
right.
this
That's right.
is
That's right. That's
like
right.
such a
Oh.
major ordeal because he has not lived up to it at all.
Yeah,
Even when he's been on the field, he wasn't. But their offensive line was awful. It has been from the start of the season. So I don't. It's kind of hard to put it on him too.
I forgot he got that deal. Um, I still think Daniel Jones is a good quarterback. I mean, I don't know
I
that
do
he's a
too.
great. I don't know he's a great quarterback, but I think he's a good quarterback. I think
I don't think he's great.
I wish you could
He's
pass
good.
that through to me. But
Yeah, I bet you
anyway,
do.
yeah, I do. Anyway, yeah, the
Sure, I
Cowboys
gave
did.
enough for both of us.
Did you see did you see Trayvon Diggs?
I did. I was gonna. I was gonna
Yes.
bring.
Yes.
Trying to bring his brother over.
Yes.
Yeah,
He's like talking about how he's. I mean, he's. It's hard to argue with. We'll
yeah.
get to that game, or we
CD
can get to it
Lamb.
now. If you
The
guys
only
wish
thing
to
I'm
run
going to
it
say
back.
is CD Lamb is
Oh,
uh,
he's.
playing the
They're
best
using
football
it
of his
the right
career.
way.
They're
Yeah,
using him
they're
well.
using it the right way.
Yeah, and I mean, and the old man still got a little something in the tank. Brandon Cooks had a great game.
What you're
Impressive.
seeing, I feel like, with that team though, is they're starting to recognize more of their identity, and they tried too much to turn. We talked about it, like turn Tony Pollard into Zeke Elliott, and it's not who he is.
Right.
And what you've seen the last couple of weeks, and we will take into consideration who they're playing as well.
Yeah.
But the Giants' defense has been decent.
Yeah.
Like not maybe not the offense, but the defense.
But they also haven't played the Cowboys. You know
That's
what I mean?
true.
Yeah.
No, I'm not, and you're not wrong. But I mean, we can get to Washington if you want to, because they actually their offense is better than I think people realize.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I just I don't know. I feel like they're realizing their identity runs through Dak, and for better or worse, they just need to accept that, and it's making them much better on offense.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the problem with Mike McCarthy calling plays is Mike McCarthy calling plays, and it does seem like he's had a lighter touch. It seems
Agreed.
like he's had a lighter touch, and I think that
Agreed.
if that continues to be the case, um, then maybe that's great. Tony Pollard is not is just not a between the tackles running back.
He's not. You're right.
And we'll see. I mean, we'll see if McCarthy can keep it up, because I think eventually his arrogance will get the best of him and he'll go
Not
right
this,
back.
not
He's
this
going to
week.
revert.
Not
Well,
this
but you're
week.
not playing anybody this week. You know what I mean?
No,
You're not,
I know they're not. They're playing Carolina. It's like
right.
nothing, no risks. Yeah, you're exactly
risk.
right.
But when they have to play Philly again, when they that we'll see. I think
Yeah.
I mean, again, Philly still continues to be probably the biggest question mark, like, because we haven't seen them play well yet. They win,
Yeah, no,
but we haven't seen them play well. All right, so let's stick in the NFC East. Go to the Commanders. I agree with you. I think their offense is good. I think we've said Sam Howell, good quarterback.
I like
looks
him.
good. They've got good weapons there.
They've got their quarterback. That's the good thing, is
I
they've
think
got
so
their
too.
I think so too.
I think you. Yeah.
And I think they've got I mean, between
And
Scary Terry
a
and
good
Jahan
defense.
Dotson and Curtis Samuel, I think they've got a nice trio of receivers. I mean, you could probably
They're,
upgrade one of those guys, but I don't know that you need
they're
to.
missing. I think they're missing something. I don't know exactly what it is,
Offensive
They're
but
line.
missing
it's
an
The
offensive line.
offensive
is
line.
that really
Yeah,
what?
they're missing
Oh
an
no,
offensive
you're
line.
exactly right. All the sacks. I
Yeah,
forgot about that. Yeah, no,
they're
you're
missing an O
exactly
line,
right.
and because I think Brian Robinson's good, they
Right.
and they could probably upgrade their tight end from
Well,
a pretty
both their running
battered
backs.
Logan Thomas,
Yeah.
but they need
Mhm.
both running backs, but they need an O
That
line,
makes, yeah,
and I
that's
mean
it. That's
honestly,
where they're going to spend their money this year.
and honestly, to give up Chase Young and Montez Sweat, and the defense still looks not bad.
Yeah.
It's pretty
They're freeing
impressive.
up money. They're
Yeah.
freeing up money to go after that offensive line is what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's smart. I mean, because you can tell like it's there. It's almost there. Like they're in almost every game, even though their record doesn't show it. They're in all these games.
They're playing good football. They're playing good football. They're playing good football that they can't win.
Right.
The next step is going to be learning how to win.
Mhm.
But yeah, that the O line is going to prevent them from beating any good teams.
And the enemy is going to get all the credit.
As he should.
He should. That's why that offense looks good. Like even
You
as
know.
good as it is, he's working within the confines of, of the offensive line that they have.
The question is going to be, does Bieniemy get a head coaching job?
No, I think he takes over for the Commanders next year. I think this was a transition year with
they fire Riverboat Ron.
Oh yeah, he's gone.
I bet he's known all season, and it's like, look, we're giving your swan song. Like, go do your thing, and we'll just retire, or effectively, right? And try to make it as respectful as possible. But that's the only way Bieniemy leaves Patrick Mahomes. Right. He doesn't go to take another offensive coordinator job. Like it doesn't do that much for his reputation to go, look, I did it on my own. You know what I mean? Like he was already getting head coaching interviews. Like, why would that benefit him?
Yeah, I don't know though. When you're still always going to be under Andy Reid's shadow.
Sure, but
because Andy Reid casts a big shadow.
Unless he just wasn't being considered.
I mean,
is all I'm saying. Like,
yes, I understand. But I do think you got two rings. Maybe you do go out to show that you're not Andy Reid. You're not dependent on Andy Reid. But we'll see. I mean, you're probably right. New ownership group makes sense. Change things up.
Right. Clean start for them. Plus, this actually works out perfect for him because you do see the pieces there. And so if they can spend that money on that offensive line and they take a big jump next year, then all of a sudden he'll get all the kudos for it.
Sure. So let's see. So let's I mean, the Seahawks did what they had to do. I expected the Seahawks to do I thought that they might come out stronger after the beatdown.
Yeah.
But I don't think that was because the Seahawks played poorly as much as it was that Washington played really well. I still think the Seahawks are a very good team, and I stick with that. I think they're solid.
Sure.
And they continue to lead their division. So until they play the Niners again. Jets Raiders, literally nothing to say about this except for Zach Wilson absolutely sucks. I continue. I want to say one thing. I said earlier in the season, I said, drives me crazy when Zach Wilson runs backwards, like goes back in the pocket and then, inevitably takes a sack or throws a pick or whatever. I watched Kyler Murray do that this week, and I thought, like, look, this guy's doing the same thing that I complain about Zach Wilson all the time. The difference is Kyler Murray goes backwards 10 yards and turns it into an 18-yard gain. Zach Wilson goes back 10 yards and turns it into a 12-yard loss.
Yes.
Because not only does he go
ran
back
for
10,
54 yards though in this game.
Not only
he had a good running game.
I'm not saying that he can't scramble out and run. I'm saying Zach Wilson
he pulls it,
panics and goes backwards, and then he's like, well, if I just keep going backwards, somebody will open up and I can throw 10 more yards. And it's like, no, dude, like it's a bad decision. It's just a bad football decision. Kyler Murray does it. I watch Lamar do it sometimes too, but you're like, hey, look, I know I'm faster than everybody else on the field. I mean, I can get out of this as long as I see them, as long as I see them coming. So I don't mind as much. Zach Wilson, that's not who he is. That's not his game. anyway, the Jets are awful. I feel bad. They probably shouldn't win another game this year either, but they will. Because that defense is so good. The
I can
defense is
proudly tell you guys. I told you guys last week. I was just gonna be like, yeah, I get a free night with the wife. And I owned every ounce of that. I refused to watch any moment of that game. And I didn't watch the highlights. And I'm proud of that fact.
I watched I got Ella to bed and watched oh no, that was Sunday night. Got home, got Ella to bed, and I watched the last quarter and change or so. But yeah, I mean, I tried to watch everything on replay this before coming in here today. So
I watch Survivor reruns. No, I'm just kidding. Like
I watch NFL replay on double speed and like tried to get everything back to, so I've at least seen enough of the games to talk about some stuff that I've seen. All right.
Sure.
And the Raiders, hey, look, I like Aiden O'Connell. I don't think he's the future. He's a backup. But I'm rooting for him because I kind of like him. I like him better than Garoppolo. Not because I think he's a better quarterback than Garoppolo. He is not. But I'm rooting for him that he might. Well, I'm rooting for him that he might develop into one. I
Sure,
kind
he's
of.
still young.
He's young, and I see some stuff with him where it seems like, he might be a serviceable quarterback, and who knows, maybe even better. It's hard to say. But I've seen some, I've seen a few flashes where I think, all right, this guy kind of a guy put him over here in the book. I want to keep an eye on him. All right. So this brings us to 3 games that we got to talk about: Broncos, Bills, Falcons, Cardinals, and
so we haven't been talking about games until this one.
These are the 3. I want to talk about Falcons, Cardinals before we get to the 2 we have to talk about.
Ooh, the Kyler game.
Now, yeah. What I want to talk about is Arthur Smith and the Falcons.
Bye-bye.
Now, it seems to me that this is a case study in why a billionaire fail son's kid shouldn't get into coaching. This is like the anti-Mark Davis going on here, where you're like, Arthur Smith is a coach because he was rich enough to just like decide coaching as a hobby, right? Like, that's how he becomes.
Is he the son of the owner or something?
He's the son of of a FedEx heir.
Yeah.
And so, he grew up, he basically took on coaching as a hobby, and his father was able to like buy his way into getting him into coaching. It is increasingly evident that this guy has no business coaching a football team. I am a guy who could not care less about the Falcons. I am infuriated for Falcons fans that this is the guy that you have to rely on. You have Bijan Robinson, and I'm sorry, Algiers is a great, change of pace guy.
Great tag team.
Great change of pace guy. Bijan Robinson is the best running back prospect since Saquon, at least, to come out of college.
Mm-hmm.
He is fast. He is strong. He is a between the tackles and an in the flat guy.
Yep.
And when they are in the red zone, when they're at the goal line, when they're inside of the 5, Bijan is nowhere to be found. It is a deliberate choice that Arthur Smith is making that makes literally no sense whatsoever.
Yep.
Algier is a good running back because of Bijan, because of the dynamism. Mm-hmm. He is not a Jerome Bettis that can plow ahead 3 yards every time you give him the ball. Mm-hmm. And which is why they keep getting into the red zone. And what happens? Well, I guess we'll send in one of my favorite kickers, but at least just because of his name, Younghoe Koo, to go in and put up the 3s. I like it.
Younghoe Koo.
So
it sounds so weird when you say it, Mike. like it makes me think, is that racist? I don't really know.
Art Blank needs to fire Art Smith and move on
Art Blank.
with their lives. This is another one. As much as I'd like to get Brandon Staley's little stubby little beard hairs and do some sort of witchcraft ritual to get his ass gone. I'd like to take Arthur Smith's stupid little mustache and do the same sort of ritual to get his ass fired. Bijan is too good to be wasted on this team.
And
the
I
way
will
that
say
he's coaching it.
that I think it's evident at this point, Ritter is better than Heineke. Like I'm not saying he's good. I'm just saying he is better than Heineke, at least for that offense. Like it just that whole team looks so much more dynamic when he came into the game.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, agreed. Ritter. I mean, again, I think we've learned that neither Whitaker nor Heineke is the answer for the team. However,
they're both good backups, is what they are.
Yes.
Like Ritter actually would be a really interesting backup for Lamar, as an example.
Sure.
Like, but you don't want him as your starter unless you have to have it.
So did they pull Heineke?
They pulled Heineke.
No, he got concussion. He got concussion.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, he's concussion protocol. Sorry,
he got injured is what it was.
Yeah.
But they just looked different when Ritter came in. They looked more effective on offense. They were moving the ball better. It's really when Bijan even started running better.
It is. I mean, I'm sorry. I just want to say the Falcons.
Mm-hmm.
The Falcons have the best running back prospect to come out of college in a number of years. They have Kyle Pitts, who was the best tight end prospect in years come out of college. And I watched him at Florida. He is a monster. And they have decided to treat him as if he is Trey McBride, or even Zach Ertz, maybe, where they're just like, he's just your normal, tight end who can catch some passes sometimes. This is a guy who should be year in and year out putting up numbers that compete with Andrews and Kelsey, at the very least, Dallas Goedert. At the very least.
Yeah.
And
he's in that level for sure.
He is. Honestly, talent to talent. Would you rather have TJ Hawkinson or Kyle Pitts?
Oh, that's tough. That's tough for me. Like I just, because I think that TJ Hawkinson brings something different to the table.
Hawkinson brings a toughness.
That's more what I'm getting at. Like if you're talking athleticism, I mean, I don't know, because Hawkinson's more of a blocker. He's more of a blocker though.
I'm talking about athleticism. I'm talking about bringing in your Kyle Pitts to be your receiving tight end. He's your guy.
Receiving wise, yes, probably.
Yeah.
But complete tight end, I would go with Hawkinson.
Because he blocks. I agreed. Fair point. I just mean Pitts is a guy who should be 1,000-yard receiver year in and year out. I mean, or in that, if not 1,000 yards, he should certainly be close to it.
And Drake London is really good too.
And Drake London is an outstanding wide receiver. He has a good catch radius. He has good speed. He runs good routes. And again, the thing with Bijan, I can't figure out why they take him out around the goal line every time. It makes no sense to me. Because it feels personal at this point. It feels personal.
He didn't have a bad game. He had almost 100 yards and a touchdown.
But if he's going to score, he has to make that happen.
Times.
Yeah.
Right.
He's a between the 20s guy. They treat him like a between the 20s guy.
They treat him like a between the 20s guy.
Yes. How big of a guy is he?
He's big. He's big enough.
Is he? Okay.
I mean, think about Saquon. That's a good comparison. They're built very similarly, right?
Oh,
so
really?
they're really complete packs, is what they are.
Yeah.
5
toolbacks. They're 5 toolbacks. I mean, he can block. He go between the tackles. He catch the ball in space, and he makes people miss. If he gets through the line, he can make a guy miss. They're talented. And that's why I say, taking him out in the red zone just feels personal at this point. And I don't understand, because it's not like Arthur Smith is a new coach coming in after he was drafted, who didn't want to draft him. You know what I mean? He was in the draft room. Like
Yep.
maybe he didn't want him and he got overridden, and he's mad about it. Maybe he hates fantasy football and he's trying to screw every fantasy owner that owns Bijan. Maybe literally, maybe he owns Algier on his team. I don't know. But to me, I'm like, get this FedEx fail son motherfucker out of that team. This guy
I think
fucking
he's
sucks.
Yeah, I think he's going after this year.
He
I
is
think, I mean,
terrible.
they might make a change this year, but like during the season, but right now they're 4-6. Like I could see them leaving him in through the end of the year and then making the change after.
Arthur Blank is not usually a trigger happy guy when it comes to this stuff either.
Yeah.
Nope.
That mousy motherfucker usually waits to the end of the season. Sorry, he looks like a rat to me. He's
got to be 100. I remember when Vic was playing for me, he looked like an older guy.
He looks like a a human weasel or a human rat. But anyway, not to throw these ad hominems, but come on, look at that man's face. Dude looks like a fucking rat. Sorry. Anyway, not a fan of Arthur Blank either. But yeah, no, I want to see Arthur Smith. Sorry, that's all I really want to talk about. Kyler Murray looked rusty, but
fine. Nothing else really to say about them either.
I mean, what else do you say about the Cardinals? I mean, good luck.
They're tanking this year. I mean, we all know it.
Well, they were trying to tank, and Kyler Murray threw a wrench in that plan.
I think all their players are playing hard, but they're doing everything they can to not make it. They're the Cleveland Indians right now. Let's be honest. Like that's who they are. The Cleveland Indians from Major League. So I mean, they were intentionally put together to be bad. And you're right. Kyler Murray does throw a wrench in that a little bit, but I don't have much to say about the Cardinals the rest of the year unless they just do something surprising.
And I have to also say, just since we're talking about owners, I mean, it would be unfair of me to like besmirch Arthur Blank without saying the Bidwell family, the worst owners in football. Like hands down, the worst owners in football. I remember when you weren't in Baltimore. I don't think you were in Baltimore when maybe you were, Care. When the Baltimore still had the Baltimore Stallions of the CFL League, and they were the Baltimore Colts there for a year, and then they made us change that name. We had the Baltimore Stallions, and they were the Baltimore CFLers because they made us change the Colts. Then we were the Baltimore Stallions, and there was talk of an NFL team coming to Baltimore, and the three teams that were talked about, two of them were talked about, and then the third team, the last team, was the Browns. But the first two were the St. Louis Cardinals.
Yep, I remember that.
And the LA Rams, who then went to St. Louis, if I recall correctly. Yeah. And I mean, if my timeline is right, but it was the Rams and the Cardinals.
I remember the Cardinals. I didn't remember the Rams.
I just remember going into 7-Eleven, and they had T-shirts for sale, and they had Baltimore Cardinals. And then they had Baltimore Rams T-shirts for sale. And I remember thinking, God, as much as I want an NFL team in Baltimore, please don't bring the Bidwells. Rams. I don't want the Bidwells. No, the Rams would have been fine. We would have been greatest show on turf. Are you kidding me? Would have been great.
Well, maybe.
Yeah.
Not maybe.
No, that's who that team became.
That's who that team became in 3 years. That became in '99. They were the, that was Dick Vermeer. That's
yep. 99.
Yeah, we would have had the greatest show on turf.
Come on,
man. Marshall Faulk, Warner, Isaac Bruce.
I kind of love that
Trunk
none of them came, though. None of them came, and I kind of love that because the Baltimore Cardinals and Baltimore Rams do not have the same ring.
Yeah, for sure.
As the Ravens. And that would have never changed.
But we got the Browns.
We wouldn't have changed the Cardinals or the Rams, right? Would not have changed.
We wouldn't have changed with those, and because it was the Browns, that's why we did.
Right. Well, because they sued. Yeah. And obviously nobody else did. Yeah. But I just remember at the time thinking, God, anybody but Bill Bidwell. I mean, anybody but Bill Bidwell, because they were already the worst. He was already the worst owner in football. And then, although I have to say, I did root for Jake the Snake Plumber for many years.
I did too.
Wanting to see him drag.
Although Irsay's up there is a pretty.
Yeah, but he's no longer the
Terrible
owner, so I
owner.
don't have any problem with the Ursay family. Jim
His player,
Ursay,
his players love him though.
yeah, Jim Ursay is fine. Bobby
Party with him all
Ursay
the time.
was Bobby Ursay, was the piece of shit that snuck out in the middle of the night.
Oh, right.
Yep.
Robert Ursay, Bobby Ursay was the one who snuck out. Jim Irsay was the guy who once his dad died, I think he was the one that said something to the effect when the Colts came to town at some point. He was like, "Yeah, I'd hate me too. Like I'd hate my family too if
I kind of do
like
remember that.
he seems like a pretty cool dude.
He's
Mhm.
he's one that parties a lot.
Yes, he's a fail
Yeah,
son.
he does. That's what he's known for
He's
sure.
a fail son. He's a fail son. Um,
Hmm.
you know. All right. So, gentlemen, let me pause this for a minute. I'm going to run to the bathroom. Um, and we're back. Everybody's bladders are empty and we're ready to go.
Ready to rock and roll.
All right. So,
I haven't
all
been
right.
drinking tonight. I should have been drinking. I haven't been drinking.
Yeah, I didn't expect to drink because I drank a lot kind of over the weekend. Sorry, real quick. So we did this,
Mhm.
I was up there in Atlanta in Ackworth, up in Ackworth. And man, I'm telling you, we found this place. It was what can I see if I can remember the place and make a nice plug.
My headquarters of my company is in Atlanta now. I'm there 1 week a month.
Okay.
Yeah. You
It's
want to boogie
well,
on
this
up?
is in Ackworth, so it's not really Atlanta. It's up you got to keep going up
Yeah.
75 past Kennesaw and
Ah,
Woodstock up to Ackworth
gotcha.
over.
We're
But
in Alpharetta.
oh, actually that's not too far. Yeah. So
Yeah.
you go up to Ackworth, there's this cool place. It's called Portal Pinball and Games or whatever.
Hmm.
And it was like $10 an hour, $18 for 2 hours.
Hmm.
And all the games are free. And it was every pinball game that you remember or even don't remember, but feel like you maybe vaguely do from the
Hmm.
80s or 90s. They had all of them. And
Nice.
and then they had all kinds of video games, all the usual suspects from the old days, but they
Yep.
had the original NBA Jam. Man, I just kept playing NBA Jam, trying to remember how I used to get the big head playing NBA Jam.
Was
Uh,
that the one where you can like jump 100 feet like in the air type shit?
yes.
Yes, I know what you're talking about.
Mm.
Hmm.
I know what
They
you're
had
talking
Street
about.
Fighter 3, like Street Fighter
On
2, like
fire.
whatever, 3 edition. They had Mortal Kombat, or sorry, Street Fighter 2, like some, like the third edition after the championship edition. They had Mortal
Yeah.
Kombat 3. They had NFL Blitz 99. Um,
What about
they had,
what about a
oh my
little
God,
Jerry Glanville? They have a little Jerry
oh,
Glanville.
I played the Ravens with quarterback Jim Harbaugh.
Oh, I love it. I met him at
It's
Parrot
great.
Island
Well,
That's
oh,
funny.
nice.
while he
Um,
was playing for the Colts. I mean, for the Ravens.
oh, nice. Yeah, I mean, you probably could have met him at Bowhager's back then.
Yeah,
Um,
that was probably the next stop.
yeah, but I was going to say Parrot Island to Bowhager's. That's the pipeline.
Yep. Yep.
Um, anyway, it was just such a cool place because like they had like I mean I had such a good time. Um, we went with some friends and like paid for an hour with all the kids and everything and then they were like we got to go. I'm like yeah, 'cause they've got a baby. I'm like yeah, they were like they got to go. I'm like okay yeah. Walked them outside. As soon as they got in their car, I was like I kind of want to do another hour. I was like I want to go back. I want to go back to this NBA Jam, man. I'm like flashing back. Anyway, so if you get up there, Portal Pinball is cool, and they had a little bar there serving craft beers.
Sure. They
So,
should.
well, I know there were a couple of other places like that did not. It was just it was a cool place. Anyway, sorry, there's an arcade that opened up in Gainesville that's supposedly similar, but I haven't been yet. So this was my like first time kind of doing a place like that. It was pretty cool. Okay,
Interesting.
yeah, good stuff. Okay, sorry. Back to the story. Um, as Mike says, back to the story. All right.
Two games.
What do you guys want to do? Broncos, Bills, or do you want to talk about that catastrophe in Baltimore?
Dealer's choice.
Yeah. Let's get
Let's knock the Ravens out. Let's do that.
yeah.
Let's
do
knock the
that
Ravens out,
first.
and we'll finish with the last game of the week. So, what the hell, man? We led that game for 59 minutes and
How
58
many
seconds.
times? How many times do I have to say the same thing? We get out to a lead, and we take our foot off the pedal.
Yep.
If we do not figure out how to close out games, we have no chance in the playoffs. And I don't think we do, because I think what you're seeing now, because if you think about this, even when we've been good in the last few years, that's also been our problem.
Yep.
This is a Harbaugh problem. That's
I'm
what
telling
this
you,
is.
man.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
You're never ever. I'm never comfortable with these guys.
It's an aggressiveness that he's missing. He's got that old coach mindset of, we're going to control the clock, we're going to play good defense, but the problem with that is that's not today's NFL.
Yeah.
All these offenses, look at almost every offense in the league, even the worst ones, there are explosive pieces on those teams that can exploit you in all it takes is one play. And that mindset doesn't work.
Lamar's pick 6 changed everything.
Sure.
The momentum just completely, like, the wind got sucked out of that stadium.
Every game, right? I mean, it happens. It's part of it, though, is we stopped being who we were that got us into the position that we were. Yep. Instead of continuing to play our game, they take their foot off the pedal.
Yeah, I mean, Myles Garrett was in Lamar's back pocket. He was uncomfortable all day, and when Ronnie Stanley went out, it stopped being uncomfortable and became a problem. Yeah, no, it is a problem.
He needs to go. It's like,
no, Ronnie Stanley's a problem, and it's a frustrating problem because it's like, when healthy, blah 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 blah. But yeah, I mean, you know, but left
too much
tackles,
money's wrapped up in him.
Left tackles are not good. Left tackles are hard to come by, and that's the problem. You know, it's the hardest position on that O-line, and
for sure,
it's hard to plug that hole. And I feel bad. I really like Daniel Faalele. I thought, given the Herculean task in front of him, to like stop Myles Garrett, I thought he played okay. I mean, I really did. I thought he played okay.
I love. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say I love that kid Keaton Mitchell. He is just looking fantastic.
Yeah, he's our A-chan. I think you said it last week. I totally agree. Like, he's just so explosive.
Yeah, and I didn't realize he was Anthony. I didn't realize he was Anthony Mitchell's kid.
Yeah, that's kind of cool.
Anthony Mitchell.
Who was on the 2000 Ravens Super Bowl team.
Yeah,
had an interception in the Super Bowl.
Yep.
Shit.
He was.
They get him more than 3 carries, man.
Well,
they highlighted that during the game too.
Well, he's one of those guys that he's not a guy you can give 20 carries to. You know, you have to.
Well, yeah, I know that, but more than 3. I'm saying more than 3.
They're going to. He's just getting back. You know, I mean, he's just getting back from injury.
Was he? I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, he was not supposed to be on the team. You know, Melvin Gordon was supposed to be the guy, and he was so good at training camp that he made the squad, and relegated Melvin Gordon to the practice squad. And
he earned it in the preseason for sure.
Yeah, he's undrafted. He's an undrafted free agent, and out of East Carolina, I think, right? Yeah. And so and then he got hurt in the preseason and was on IR. You know, IR to return. He just came back a couple weeks ago, and the first time back, I think he touched the ball once. I think it was just like, you know, and then last week, of course, he blew up, and then he blew up this week. But that was another sort of somewhat baffling thing. Although, I mean, I guess I kind of understand it strategically. Like, I couldn't quite understand why they didn't send him back in there for a play or two late in the game.
I'm saying, like, they got lazy. Like, I feel like the whole team
I think Harbaugh doesn't know if he can trust him either yet. Like, you know, is this a guy who does he protect the ball when it matters? But
Gus. That's that mindset right there. Is the exact mindset I'm talking about. It's like, who cares? Like, there are mistakes that happen in every game. You see it in every game that we watch. It's like, you can't play scared.
Sure,
and then,
I know.
And then at the same time, play the analytics like you're some aggressor. Like he has things backwards. You know what I mean? And I just don't. I've seen enough. It's the team's mindset. The head coach sets the personality of the team, and in a lot of ways, it's fantastic. Right? It's amazing defense. The offense is finally looking good. but they're missing that aggressiveness, and it shows up at the end of games.
Yeah, I agree. But I also think the offense really dropped the ball at the end as well. I mean, sorry. They really,
Sure.
stopped pushing.
Mhm.
They stopped pushing.
hmm That's
You
my
know,
point, though. That's kind of my point, like that I'm making. I agree fully.
so I mean, but that's on Munkin more than it is on Harbaugh.
I
And
think
then
it's I
and then
think it's the
honestly,
coach's scheme, though,
but
because it existed well before Munkin was ever here.
yeah.
It's every year we've been this way for like the last 3 or 4 years.
No, I agree. I think, I'm not, I'm not as worried about the Ravens at this point, but yeah, I agree.
I'm not worried. I just like,
Harbaugh
but we
needs
have
to
to figure out how to finish games out. That's
Harbaugh
my point.
yes, he needs to figure out how to keep his foot on the gas. Um, I mean, I am comforted by the fact that in 3 losses, we have given away all 3 of those losses. We have not been beaten yet.
Hmm?
We have lost,
Sure.
but in none of those games were we beaten.
hmm
We were unable to finish 3 of our
Mhm.
10 games.
We always beat ourselves. Always.
Totally right.
I mean,
That's why it's so frustrating, though. I mean,
Yep.
yeah,
that's
absolutely.
what makes
Well,
it so
I
frustrating.
I I was a little frustrated in the third quarter where it really seemed like I'm not really sure what happened, but McDonald just seemed to like let off a little as well, where
Oh yeah.
the defense just stopped.
I mean, Marlon getting hurt didn't help,
Yeah.
but I mean, but it was more than that. I agree with you. It just felt like the attack disappeared.
And is Marlon going to be back Thursday? I meant to look that up, but I forgot.
Last I
Don't
saw,
know.
he's day to day. When I
Okay.
saw,
Okay.
I probably won't declare him until game time. Would be my
Sure.
guess.
Sure. Yeah, but I mean, and it's like again, I see a lot of buzz about Deshaun Watson this week, and I'm like, I mean, he was still,
No, I've heard that too, and I'm like, did you not watch the game?
yeah,
He didn't look that great. It
Very
was
middle of the road, like
middle of the
game.
road.
Yeah, and even when the Ravens took their foot off the pedal, he was still kind of just knit. Like it
The
was
biggest,
Mhm.
fine.
the biggest thing that
It
I would say is that he showed some mobility that he hasn't really shown,
sure,
and he
that's for
managed to
sure.
escape a few tackles that should have been tackles, but he
Right.
managed to escape a few. There were a couple of plays that there were a couple of mistakes made in wrapping up that you know had a real negative effect on the way that game
And
ended.
I hope he comes back personally. Like I don't think he deserves the he's finally back. You're right, the mobility thing, that was a big thing you saw is different.
Yeah.
And so maybe this pieces of him are starting to come back because he's one of the most fun quarterbacks to watch. I know we disagree because you hold
Yeah.
what he's done above him, and that's fine. As a player, he is fun to watch,
Oh,
and I think the
agreed.
league is
He
better
is.
Yeah,
when he's
agreed.
on the field.
And I mean,
You,
I don't put him in the same category as some other people who have done some things. I mean, in his case, it seems just like honestly seems just kind of like he is a I don't know. Nobody ever told him no, and he's not really sure how to deal with
immature.
it. He seems
Mhm.
immature.
Listen,
I mean, and a
I
sexual
feel
assault is
like
still sexual assault, but like,
I feel like the Ravens script every game is to come out, just curb smash people till the second half, and then you can almost
and
feel
then
it. Like
coast.
they go flat,
Yep.
they like drive down, and then they all of a sudden they get into these
Mhm.
3rd and 10, then they punt, 3-and-out punt, and then it's either interception, a kick return. They'll fumble deep in their own. They do all that shit,
Something changes the
shoot
momentum.
themselves in the foot. Yeah. And then you could just turn the TV off. You know that's done.
Yeah, agreed. It does seem like this year Harbaugh really focused on starting fast because we have never been a fast starting team historically.
They are.
We have been a finish the first half strong kind of team,
Right.
but never a
Yep.
start
Yep.
fast. So
Yeah.
yeah, that has obviously been a focus, but to the detriment of some other things.
And it's like, which is great, but why did you stop?
Yeah.
You know
It's
what I
the
mean?
play
Like, and that's
calling. Yeah,
it's
exactly.
the
Yep.
whole thing changes. It's so
It's
weird.
Yeah,
Yep.
I have hope that and faith that they'll figure it out.
I mean,
But
they're still a very good team. Like we're
Harbaugh's Super Bowl.
obviously being critical, but
I mean, yeah.
but
They're
we have
7-3.
aspirations of the Super Bowl, right? I mean,
Harbaugh's
that's
one
the
Super
thing.
Bowl was the same thing.
It was. I know. So it's possible to do, but you can't make any mistakes. You can't, you know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like that's where you win.
yeah.
I think
No,
under his tenure, by the way, they should have at least 3 Super Bowls. I think not at least, but I think they should have 3.
I think we'll be in the conversation this year.
yeah, for sure. All right, gentlemen.
Now, Buffalo.
Nobody circles the wagons like the Denver Broncos. I want to pat myself on the back. I want to say I have said from day one, I have
Russell
concerns
Wilson
about
is
the
your man.
Bills. No, I have concerns about the Bills. I think the Bills are overrated
pony.
this year because I think they're going to ask too much of Josh Allen. And you guys laughed at me and told me I was a fool. And y'all, and then the Bills came out and they blew a couple teams away and they beat the Dolphins. And you go, I thought, well, I still think they're asking too much of Allen. Well, they're now what, 5-5?
Yep, they're a 500 team.
Yeah.
It's a 500 football team. It does not look
Yeah.
like a 500 football team. They look
And
like a better team than that.
Well, and their remaining schedule is not in their favor.
And they just fired their offensive coordinator.
Yeah, I'm like, wow, somebody just got scapegoated.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because that was not an offensive coordinator problem.
No, it was not. Which makes me think that I think maybe Sean McDermott's in trouble.
Yeah, he's trying to save his ass, is what he's trying to do.
I mean, I am surprised that he's in trouble. To be honest, I'm surprised that he's feeling the pressure. I'm not really sure that Ken Dorsey had anything to do with this.
No.
So I am now. I'm going to actually like. It's like a 3-alarm. It's like a 3-alarm problem for the Bills now, because in firing Ken Dorsey, they create a whole new situation for themselves. I don't know who's taking over. I didn't look that deep into it, but
Me either.
but so what? So obviously you're not going to learn a whole new offensive system. You're just going to try and make the best of the offensive system you have.
Which means you're going to rely on Josh Allen even more.
Which means you're going to rely on Allen even more.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. The Bills are in trouble. I think Sean McDermott's in trouble. And I watching that game. This is not a disciplined team. Sean McDermott is not getting discipline out of this team. That game should have been over 3 times at the end of it. You know, I mean, the Broncos missed their field goal. The Broncos were stopped twice on 4th down.
Yep.
And penalties kept it alive.
Their defense, the Broncos defense is playing really well, though.
That's
the one thing I do want to like think about. They do the Chiefs before their bye week, and then coming out and doing that to the Bills. I mean, I looked at it during the game last night. I'm like, wait a minute, they're 1 game out of the wild card. Like, but that's more talking about that the wild card's 5-5 and they're 4-5 or something like that. Like, but it's like they're in the conversation, and Russell Wilson's stats don't show it, but he is actually playing decent football. Like, and I don't know if it's taking time to get used to the new system or something, but like they're a better football team than I think that people think.
Russell Wilson has thrown 18 touchdowns and 4 picks, and he has 104 quarterback rating. He's having a good season. It doesn't feel like it. It doesn't feel like it because he goes and Kansas City comes to town and they beat the Chiefs and he throws for 114 yards. And that doesn't seem like a winning stat line. 3 touchdowns, no picks. 114 yards. Defense played well. You know, he also went to Kansas City and had a 46 QBR. 46.6 when they got destroyed by the Chiefs.
Oh yeah, that was a bad week for sure. But yeah, no, I'm more referring to the last couple of weeks. And he's had a couple of bad weeks, but he's had a decent season overall.
If you That's the thing. It doesn't seem like he's had a good season. I mean, he's thrown for
Right.
1,800 yards, and that doesn't seem all that impressive. I was looking at a thing. Hold on a second.
No, it's under 100 yards a game. I mean, under 200 yards a game. So,
But Mahomes, by contrast, who has thrown for 2,400 yards, so an extra 650 yards, really.
Mhm.
Mahomes has 17 touchdowns, 8 picks. Wilson has 18 touchdowns, 4 picks. Mahomes QBR 96.7. Now,
Mhm.
I mean, if you've watched this season so far, does it seem like Russell Wilson has a better QB rating than Mahomes?
Of course not. That's why I hate that thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
If you look at
it's
his
also the hype.
receivers,
It's also the hype train too, though. Like everyone in sports media is praising that Patrick Mahomes is the second coming, and everybody's ready to jump all over Russell Wilson because of all the rumors you hear about what happened in Seattle and last year, the debacle of what that team looked like. It's more popular to say he's on his way out as opposed to no, he's doing what the team needs to do to win.
yeah, I mean,
it
go ahead.
it doesn't appear as though he can get the ball down the field. That's for sure.
Part of that is because he's got Sutton and Judy, who are not real great down the field receivers. They
So if
are
you look at
12-yard guys.
exactly. Well, if you look at Sutton, he caught 8 balls for 53 yards.
Yeah,
Yep.
but that's
who he is.
But that's right. That's who he is.
And he
That's
led
exactly
the team in yardage, so no one else was over 53 yards, but he had he was the one leading with all the receptions. But you're right, it must be a bunch of little hook plays or down and outs.
Well, they had a couple of big kick returns too that put him in good field position.
Right.
And it's like we've watched Lamar play great, throw for 115, 150 yards because the Ravens seem to have the ball starting field position at the 50 all day. I mean, we've watched those games, and you're like, Lamar's played a great game. I'm not saying Russell Wilson is playing great football, but he's taking care of the football. And
the big difference for me has been their defense the last couple of weeks. That's the thing that's been different than the early part of the season. That's it.
Well, yes. And they've started to have a running game.
Mm-hmm.
Javonte Williams is playing well. I mean, is he great? No. But he's doing Deontay Foreman stuff.
Well, he's also coming back from an ACL tear, right? Last year, I think it was. And so he was probably still getting healthy some at the beginning of the year.
Sure.
He's finally a little more healthy.
And again, I mean, we're fantasy football poisons everybody's brain a little bit. I mean, it does. I mean, if you start thinking in terms of fantasy football, you're like, well, I expect to see a guy, running back. I expect to see a running back with like 17 carries for 100 yards, or whatever, 20 carries for 100 yards if it's Derrick Henry,
right,
like
which
minimum,
which is actually special,
which is special. And you go, I mean, if you get a guy who can get you 3.5 yards a carry, 4 yards a carry, hey, you know what? 3.5 yards times 3 is 10 and a half yards. You know what I mean? Like a guy gets you 3.5 yards, gets you first downs every 3 carries. If you're, I mean, I know not in reality, but like in a matter of, averages. And you can sort of forget that. Javonte Williams is fine. He's not special, but he is solid. He's, like I said, he's Deontay Foreman. He's Latavius Murray, right? He's, gets you hard yards between the tackles that wear down a defense and keep it honest. Russell Wilson is throwing the ball just enough. But I mean, Wilson's 24 of 29 for 193. Yeah, they're all dinks and dunks.
But if they don't have a deep, to your point, they don't have a deep threat yet. And if they add that piece, that could be like not this year, obviously, but meaning like maybe next year in the offseason, if they add that kind of piece, it could be interesting.
Well, and I mean, and if you're going to be able to control a game, sometimes dinks and dunks are the best way. They're running a West Coast offense.
Yep.
I mean,
Mhm.
it's all short passes. It's all, you know, I mean,
Less
look at this.
risk. Yeah.
The Broncos had the ball in that game for 37 and a half minutes. I mean, the time of possession is not even close. 37 to 22 minutes. It's not even close. And they did it
Yep.
with, I mean, what, 300 total yards? It's not a lot.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But you just chip away, chip away, chip away. Trust your defense, keep them rested.
Yeah. But we can't avoid the way that game ended. Like it was just like I texted a buddy and I go, "This is like which team makes the last mistake? That's who's going to determine. That's how it's going
Yeah.
to determine the outcome."
Well, for
Like
sure.
it was just so funny to me. Like I missed a field goal. I see your field goal with an extra man. Like it's like, are you
Yep.
kidding me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Like that just happened.
Yeah. No, that was crazy. No, but again, this is I think this goes to McDermott. I don't think he coaches a very
Right.
disciplined team.
Oh, it was, and it wasn't like someone running off the field either. Like no, they were all lined up.
Well, no, that's not fair because honestly, I thought it was a crazy thing that the Broncos did. I think it's crazy to like that Wilson ran over to the right hash mark and took a knee, and then they just
Mhm.
ran the field goal unit on. Like, I don't know. I much prefer the idea of like, look, you're in between the hashes. You've already
Mhm.
taken knees and timeouts. Set the ball where you want it on the first knee. Use your timeout. Send your kicker out. I mean, I get it that you don't want to leave any time left. I mean, I do understand that, but I feel like running the guys out like that, you're risking so much. You know what I mean? Like you're
Sure,
just
no, that's fine. But what I mean is the Bills had literally 12 guys
well,
lined up.
right,
That's like
right,
they were
but the
ready.
reason was because Wilson took the snap with what 24 28 seconds or whatever to go, ran over to the right hash, took the knee, and then the offense and both offense and defense fled the field, and the field goal units came on.
Mhm.
And because there's no time, there's that rush. You know, I get it. Like somebody stayed on that is on some field goal units and not on others. Somebody, you know
Mhm.
what I mean? Somebody made that mistake on the Bills, obviously.
For sure.
But I think when you have the timeout, like most of the time in that situation, you clock the ball or you call your last timeout, and then you get set up
Mhm.
so that everybody has the time to do it right. And so running it out there increases the risk of a 12-man penalty every time. You know what I mean? Because it's like it's just too chaotic. Everybody's in a hurry because there's not enough. Like they're you got to get set. You got to get set quick. So yeah, I'm not disagreeing with you. It was stupid. It was terrible, terrible football on the
How
part
they
of the Bills.
lost the game. Like
Mhm,
it literally is how they lost the
mhm.
game.
But again, I mean, but my point was just that it was the way that played out with rushing the team out and everything. Although you should know that. I mean, I don't know when on third down with no timeouts, Wilson was coming out to take the snap. I was like, maybe he runs backwards. Maybe he runs backwards, tries to run off 4 or 5 seconds, and then throws it away, so you
Right.
don't lose the line of script. I was like, that's the one thing that would be logical for him to reposition the ball. I was like, what are you doing? Like you do that the first time. It was weird.
Well, but I heard them analyze this actually on McAfee's show. They were talking about it, and they said had something to do with you could tell the kicker had a read on the wind, and so he wanted the ball in a certain place.
Yeah, but they took
And
2 knees before it. That was my point. You could have
no,
done
I
that.
get that,
Yeah.
but maybe that communication chain got broken and it
Oh, I
didn't
see.
get to the team,
I
and
see.
that's why they went back out to do it
I see.
potentially. I don't, but I heard them at least talking about it had something to do
Yeah.
with the way the wind was gusting.
Sure, sure, sure. The wind was blowing. The wind was blowing right. They went to the right
Mhm.
hash so he could kick into the wind. I get that. But
Yeah.
but I also thought like the way that they like rushing it like that just seemed like you're setting yourself up for disaster. And it
Hmm.
was. He came out and he missed.
Exactly right.
Because I think I think you need time to set that play. I mean,
Hmm.
I get that having the time is a luxury, but also like
Right.
if you can have the time, you should always have the time to make sure everybody's set, everything's right.
Yeah.
It's hard to get set. It's
Mhm.
hard to make sure you've set for for a second. And but
Well,
yeah,
I think they've analyzed that too, and he got hit with a big gust, which also made his
there you go.
imperfection even more exaggerated.
There you go.
Because
Okay.
if you look at it, it kind of swerved a little bit at one point. Because
Sure.
it looked like it was on line inside the post just barely, and then just swerved right outside.
Yeah. That makes sense. But I mean,
You never wanna cund if anything. That's for sure.
It sounds so inappropriate.
Again though, I mean, Josh Allen, 15 of 26, 177 yards, one touchdown,
That was
2
bad.
picks.
Mm-hmm.
And like
a lot of frustration on that offense too.
How many drop passes did Gabe Davis have?
I have no idea. All I know is he helped me win fantasy.
I mean, he had 2 catches, but like he dropped several.
I know. He dropped several. Yeah. He had 2 for 56, I think, and a 2-point conversion. But yeah, he dropped a whole bunch.
Yeah, it was a pretty shocking game. I mean, like, I mean, when you again, like this is one of those games where you look at the stats and nothing makes any sense in watching this game. I want to just say, I think the Bills are in trouble.
They are.
I've said I'm just glad that this is maybe like the one prediction I made at the beginning of the season that I was right about. The Bills are in trouble.
You've said it all along.
Yeah. All right.
Speaking of making predictions that you're right about.
Yeah. I mean, you got 10 games right. Good job. Congratulations.
And that's not the first time. I think that's 2 in 3 weeks that I did a 10 spot.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for that shit sandwich in the middle, I'd be so on fire right now.
Yeah. So let's move on to this week where I am very bad at picking games with a spread.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, I'm bad at it. No question.
Not following Mike last week might not have been such a bad strategy. Huh? I'm going to let him have that. Let him gloat.
Yeah. I'll let him have it.
So Cincinnati goes to Baltimore.
Although I will say, I was the only one that picked Denver.
Okay.
That's true. I mean, bravo.
Yep. I just wish I was. I wish I was actually
almost
betting
the equivalent of Mike having to pick the Vikings for me.
I will say too. I took the Jets, and that was a game that, like, man, that was almost a good pick because it was a 1-point game. And it was like Zach Wilson with that late pick. I was like, oh man, I thought for sure the Jets were going to do it. Anyway, I thought Garrett Wilson was going to will them to a win in that game, but I forgot Zach Wilson was still the quarterback.
Yes.
Anyway, all right. So Thursday night we got a Thursday night game.
Cincy Baltimore.
It's a blackout game too.
I'm going Baltimore in this one. It's a 3.5 point spread.
It's a blackout game.
What's that?
What's that mean? It's a blackout game.
It's the All Blacks.
We're all black.
Oh, sorry. I was like, wait, are you telling me I can't watch this game?
Yeah. Yes, I was being racist, Brian.
No, I didn't. No, I didn't. I said a blackout means it's not going to be televised. Because like you. I mean, for me, like,
I know.
I don't like sometimes like if the Ravens are playing like the Jags, I don't get it on Sunday Ticket. I have to like find a way around because I don't have CBS where I live, so I have to like find an end around.
No, it just means they're wearing their all black jerseys.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think they've told the stadiums to kind of everybody to wear the black too. So
yeah. All right.
Yeah, cool.
So Mike, Baltimore favored by 3.5.
Baltimore.
Yeah. Same.
Oh, you're actually going to take the Ravens this time, huh?
Yeah. He's not enjoyed doing that very much lately.
I won though, picking against them.
Well, bravo, Mike.
Not worth
it. So it's your fault.
All right, so hold on. Mike, I'm going to tell you a really quick story. Yeah. Gary and I have been doing fantasy football for many years. I mean, I think like 20 years at this point. Maybe not quite, but close to that, if not. And I remember one year, God, it's probably been 10 years since this happened, where I drafted a Steeler, but it was like Rashard Mendenhall or Le'Veon Bell or somebody like that.
Mhm.
And he gave me shit all season for being a traitor, for drafting a Steeler. And it was like, I didn't want to, but the drop off in talent after that guy was so severe. I think it
Right.
was, I think it was Le'Veon or Richard. And I was like, I didn't have a choice. Like, I didn't want to take him, believe
Yep.
me. But like, I couldn't. If I didn't take Le'Veon Bell, I had to take Isaiah Crowell. It was like, come on.
Mike Brown has no loyalties. Don't trust anything he says. He was a Miami Hurricanes fan, and now he's not. And right now he's a Ravens fan, but he's drafted Steelers. So we know where it's going to go. Like, all he has to do is move cities, and he'll change teams.
That's right. Yep. That's right.
When
This is
you
a tough game
go,
to pick too.
when you
No love
go to a
on the
school,
fence.
you go to a college, and you're
Wow.
there, and you get student tickets, and you get to sit in the
When you
student
move
section.
to it, when you move to a city and you find a new team, like, yes, I get
Blah blah blah.
it.
I've been in Florida since 06. I haven't stopped being a Ravens fan. But yeah, I started liking the Gators because it's my alma mater, for crying out loud.
How
And I
could
happened to be here when they won 2 national championships
Hey,
and had
you
a
could have
Heisman
gone.
winner.
You could have gone to Miami.
No, I couldn't.
No, you could have.
No, they didn't have the program or the people that I wanted to study with.
So it was your choice. That does not mean you could
Yeah,
not have gone there.
I could have gone to Alabama, and I could have gone to South Carolina.
We would be friends.
And I could have gone to Georgia. I could have gone to any of those 3 schools, but I went to Florida because they offered me the most money.
Good man.
They paid me the most to be a student.
There
All
you
right.
go.
All right, so
Next
I
game,
got Baltimore.
Pittsburgh.
Yes.
Pittsburgh and
Baltimore.
Cleveland next.
Ravens for me
Everyone's
as well.
all unanimous. Unanimous it is.
All right, Pitt going to Cleveland. Cleveland's a 4-point favorite.
I got Pittsburgh in this one.
I'm gonna take the dogs. I think the Browns their defense is just really really potent.
I am terrified of this particular game because the Browns defense is amazing and Pittsburgh offense is horrific. But my God, they sure do figure out how to win. And 4 points. 4 points is ugly, and so I'm going to take Pittsburgh. Not to win, but to cover.
Yep. It'll be an ugly game, probably.
Yeah. 68% are picking Cleveland in that game. Only 55% are picking the Ravens, by the way. All right. Chicago going to Detroit. Detroit is a 10-point favorite.
I got Detroit. I think they're going to clobber them.
Ooh.
So you're venturing from your
You're
No.
breaking away from your betting
No.
strategy.
No, my betting strategy is to take the favored money line and the underdog with the points.
Right.
So
you're
I'm
not
taking
doing
the
it.
favorite.
But no, you just
I don't always have to take the underdog.
No, but this is with the points. Like these pick 'em
Correct.
is with the points. So you're picking
Correct.
Detroit to win by more than 10.
Correct.
So this is
So
what you're
goes
saying.
against-
that's half of the everyman strategy.
No, it's not.
Yes,
No,
it
no,
is.
no.
It's to take. Yes.
No, it's not.
No,
You said
the
yes.
strategy is
That's
to
not-
take Detroit with the money line and Chicago with the
exactly-
points.
Yes.
That's exactly what I'm doing. I'm taking Detroit as
No.
basically the money line because they don't get points. So
But
it's them. Well,
Yeah.
This is with points. So that's why.
yeah, you're right. You're
That's
right. You're
not
right.
the
You're right.
money line.
So
You're
in this
taking
case,
Chicago.
I am going with Detroit minus the points.
So the everyman
I
strategy.
am venturing away.
So
This is not what I would advise my Gambler Anonymous people. I would use this as a case.
If you don't have the
so
do not
conviction,
do this.
I'm so
you don't have the
confused. Who is he
conviction of your
choosing?
principles.
I'm so confused. What is he choosing?
He's taking
What
Detroit.
is-
He's going against the
taking
everyman
Detroit.
betting system.
Got it.
I'm going against my
actually-
system. My system doesn't get applied in this betting realm. It's a separate system that I use for people that have gambling problems. That's how I'm pitching it. That's how I'm going to package it.
Got it. I'm actually going to Chicago.
So-
That's a lot of points to give up, and with Fields coming back, I just feel like they're going to be
Well,
at least in that game.
so my question is whether or not Fields will be back. Because when I
Yeah,
read today,
if he's not, then I'll go Detroit
yeah.
for sure.
So I'm going to put this as a caveat because
Yeah,
according to today, Fields is still questionable.
Mm-hmm. You could change
So
it.
so I'm
Just
going to take
before.
Detroit, but I will take Chicago if Fields plays. So
yeah, and
I will.
that's kind of the same thing for me. Is I'm taking Chicago under the assumption that he's going to be back. So
Yeah, I am not sure. So yeah, because
yeah,
I it seemed more certain before the week started, but now it's like I don't know. They just might be acting cagey. I'm not sure.
Yep.
yeah.
So okay, all right. The Chargers go into Green Bay as 3-point favorites.
I've got the Chargers in this.
Ditto. I don't even see that as a question mark.
Yeah, I got the Chargers as well. The only question mark there is the weather. Green Bay,
In
mid-November,
Yeah, they'll be fine.
yeah,
could be cold.
yeah, I don't think it matters. I think Green Bay's that bad.
Yeah, they are. The Raiders going to the Dolphins as 11.5-point dogs. And
Yeah,
that
I'm going to
line
implement my
jumped a
strategy
point
here.
1.5
Yeah,
like
I'm going
overnight.
Vegas. I'm going Vegas in this one.
I I can't. I'm going
It's
Miami.
tough. I might
Miami.
actually switch that because of the QB situation with Vegas. Yeah, I'm going to switch. I'm going to go to Miami. I'm switching that to Miami. Let me
And they
reset.
don't take their foot off the pedal, and they will continue to put points.
Yep.
And that's for me. Like that's an easy pick for me.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going Miami.
Yeah, I got Miami.
The Gents.
All right, the Giants going to Washington, 10-point dogs.
Ooh,
By the way,
I'm
go
going
ahead, Mark.
Commanders. I think they're going to clobber them.
Yeah, I'm probably going to take the Commanders as well. Even with that big of a spread, that's a big number for the Commanders. But I was going to say, I was going to mention one thing. We had that conversation earlier, like who the worst team in the league was, Giants or Patriots.
Yeah,
Guess who plays next week?
Giants,
And Patriots.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's
It
great.
might be
That's
it
great.
might be the game of the week.
I
So,
love it.
Gary, who are you taking there? Are you taking Washington?
I'm taking the Commanders to cover.
All right, I'm going to take the Giants because I mean Daniel Jones has been the Washington killer, but I'm going to sort of trust that the Giants defense is going to keep them within 10. I think I'm rolling the dice on this one because man, that offense is bad, but I'm rolling the dice.
That offense is really bad.
I know, but the defense is good and has played really good when they wanted to. And I think they'll play well against Washington. They were embarrassed last week. I think they'll play well, but we'll see.
They've been embarrassed for several weeks in a row now.
No, the defense played well 2 weeks ago.
I mean, meaning the whole team.
Yeah. No, for sure. No, they're not going to win. I just think they're going to stay within 10.
Yeah.
All right, Dallas at Carolina, 11-point favorites.
Dallas.
Girls.
Who?
The girls.
The Cowgirls.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
all of us say that. All right.
Yeah.
Tennessee at Jacksonville. Jacksonville's 6.5-point favorite.
Tennessee.
I'm going to say this is a get right game for Jacksonville. I think the way they got clobbered by San Francisco last week, they're going to come out and want to make a statement that that's not who they are.
They're still concussed.
I'm going to take Tennessee because
I'm going Tennessee.
I think it's conference game, and I think Tennessee's got a good defense, and they'll stay inside a touchdown.
Not statistically.
Well, no, not statistically, but I think they stay. I think they play close, and I think Levis will play well.
We'll see.
We'll see.
Did last week.
No, but that was a different situation. We'll see. All right, Arizona, Houston. Houston is a 4-point favorite.
Arizona.
Kyler Murray effect, but I'm taking Houston.
I'm
going with the Mighty Mouse.
I'm going to take Houston at home, and count that 4 points. Yeah,
that offense is humming right now.
Yeah,
and that's the main reason why I'm taking them. Like I don't know that Arizona is going to slow them down at all.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think Arizona will put up some points. Houston's defense isn't bad.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Tampa Bay going to San Francisco to get their surfboard waxed.
I'm going Tampa Bay with this one.
11-point
No way.
dogs.
No way.
With 11 points, yeah, I'm going Tampa.
San Francisco is going to clobber them.
Yeah, I'm with you, Garrett. I think San Francisco takes them to the Fisherman's Wharf and dumps them in the bay.
This is going to be one of my 4 correct weeks, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. All right, the Jets at Buffalo, 7-point dogs.
The Jets. The Jets, baby. This might be my play of the week.
I'm actually taking the Jets as well because I hate a 7-point line partly. But I hate this game. Like it's not gonna be a fun game to watch.
The Jets are in every game. I'm taking the Jets. The Bills don't look right. Firing their offensive coordinator, I don't think that solves anything. And I think if anything, it might make things worse.
Yep.
Namely because I don't think anybody on that team thinks the OC has to go. So I don't think that it helps what they're trying to do. All right, Seattle going to the Rams as a 1-point favorite.
And that line,
I like Seattle.
Too. And that line is moved, and it has to be because Stafford is probably going to play. Like coming out of their bye week.
Yep, that's my guess.
I got Seattle right now.
Yeah, I like Seattle.
I do too, but man, that's a sneaky game. I could see the Rams pulling that game out.
Mm-hmm.
Especially coming off their bye week, actually. Like they could be really ready to go, especially for a division game like that.
I think this is a 3-point game. I mean, I think somebody wins with a field goal.
You know what? I'm gonna pull a Brian here, and I'm gonna switch. I'm taking the Rams.
Okay.
Just to be
So I have to say, this is the most surprising line of the week. Minnesota at Denver. Denver favored by 1.5 points.
Play of the week. Minnesota, easy call, brother.
That's literally just a coin flip. Yeah. That's all that is, right? So I agree. I think Minnesota wins this game.
Yep.
Hottest team in the NFL.
I got Minnesota as well. All right, now game of the week, Monday Night Football.
Yeah, baby.
Philadelphia at Kansas City, and Kansas City is a 3-point favorite.
Philly all day. This is my 3rd game of the week. This is where you clean up, boys. You take the winnings from Sunday, you put it all on Monday, and then you walk in with Tuesday with your balls hanging out.
Oh man, this is a tough one for me.
I thought you only had to walk around with your dick out when you teed off and you didn't hit it past the lady tee.
No, that's what you have to play with your pants down. Your balls, you hang your balls out.
Your balls out, okay.
Yeah, your balls.
All right, because I know when you dink one off out of the tee box, it doesn't go past the lady tee.
You've got to play with your pants down. Yes,
that's called a dick out.
I'm gonna go with KC, boys.
I got Philadelphia.
I like KC at home.
Eagles fly.
Coming off of a bye week, and I think KC's defense really likes to get after the quarterback, and that's, we've all talked about Jalen Hurts not quite being. There's something off with him. I mean, if they get after him, that could be a really interesting game.
I think the best offensive line in football slows down the KC pass rush. And Kansas City, there he is. And Kansas City does not have the weapons on offense. And Philadelphia certainly does.
I don't disagree with that. The weapons definitely slant towards, I mean, they have AJ Brown and KC has Kelsey. I mean, you move to the next spot and it changes everything.
I mean,
Rice and Goddard, but they don't have a Devontae Smith. And they don't. I mean, Swift and Pacheco, I almost might give Pacheco the edge on that one.
No, I think
his performance.
Swift is way more dynamic.
He's dynamic, but more consistent of a performer is what I mean.
Yeah.
Hey, are we tracking who's winning in this gambling thing on Yahoo? Is there any way to see a score?
Yes.
Yeah.
Who's up here? What's the? I couldn't find it. I knew where to
You're
look.
I think
winning.
you're in the lead right now by 3.
Let's see.
So, yeah.
Well, that's I had I had such a shit sandwich the week before. I can't believe it. This week, who's in second place? You, G Money.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm back.
Okay.
He's 3 behind you. I'm 3 behind him.
Yeah.
Okay.
I am 72 and 77 on the season. You are
What did you
78
do?
and 71.
I'm at least above 500.
Yeah.
That's it, man. You're making money. You're making money
By
when you
one.
like that.
By one.
Yeah. I mean, this is one of those things where I'm like, these were the games that I was actually betting. I think I'd be doing much better, but because I have to pick games that I would never touch with a 10-foot pole.
Uh-huh.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Yeah,
So,
like the 10 and 11 point lines. I wouldn't even put, I mean, that's hard to put. If I put money on that, I'm teasing
take the
it
dog.
I'm teasing it with the dog and then taking the points. So
See,
I,
it's funny that-
increase it from like 10 to 16 or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or you do like one of those reverses where you can add like 10 points
Mhm.
on each side or something like that. So if you take the dog, it's now -1 instead of -11.
Right. Yeah,
Right.
that's what I mean by a teaser. Yeah, exactly.
You do like 3 of them or something like that. I like those.
I'll usually do teasers in a parlay. I usually do 3 or 4 together.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's where it makes it the odds big enough to where, like a 5-teamer might get you $35. It's not gonna, it's
Right.
not gonna, you're not gonna retire on anything that you make off of it, but it at least makes it more interesting.
Sure.
Well, ladies, I got to turn in. It is past my bedtime.
Yeah.
It was a pleasure. It was a
Yep.
real pleasure. And
Yeah.
I'm very
Indeed.
excited to see how I do this week. So
I'm
that
sure you are.
You're going to get
may
6
be able to
rings.
we can get
You're
a
gonna get all
DraftKings
our-
sponsor.
All our Patreon subscribers, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
And DraftKings is going to want to sponsor us, and I think we'll be taking off at that point. So.
I don't think it's 78 and 71. You're quite there yet.
We'll be like
Hey.
Mikey the Greek's picks. Like that's gonna be like we're gonna get on DraftKings and it's gonna have Mikey the Greek's picks. It's its own little thing.
Hey,
we can launch
I
launch
just
a
wanna
betting
say-
app or something.
I do want to say, congratulations, Mike, for actually joining the Thursday League. You did
This week will be a fun week for that too.
You lost,
Damn
but you
right.
did well. You were competitive.
Yeah.
It came down to Garrick and I down to one, basically almost down to one play, really. It just came down to the very end. So, join again. Maybe you'll win one of them.
Yeah, I will win this one.
I need to win one. I've watched my balance in FanDuel has dropped significantly in the last 3 weeks for some reason.
Hey, I'm
I
sorry.
don't ever go on there. I don't
Yeah.
gamble.
Hey,
All right.
I mean, if Mike's so confident, we can up the ante. Like,
Nah.
No. We should start betting on the games that we pick.
And on that
Proud
note,
to-
gentlemen,
All
I'm not
right,
about to,
ladies.
looking at my record, I'm not about to do that.
yeah.
All right.
All right.
See you, girls.
See you next week.
Yeah, buddy.
All right. See ya.